Hello and welcome to episode 82 of FPL Apprentice. You are joining Dave and I for the second part of our season review. So the season is now over. For those that joined us at episode 81, thank you for bearing with us. It was a bit of a marathon, but hopefully you found some interesting insight. We spent that one talking about our own teams and our own stories of the season. That was our personal season review. This one, we're going to take a step back now and look at things at aggregate level and look at individual players, formation by formation, position by position. We'll be looking at some of the key learns that we both took from the season 2024 and 2025, and also a few kind of insights going into next year. And then we'll wrap up with our mini league, and also maybe we'll give some hints around for the winner, any kind of forfeit FPL linked forfeits they might want to direct in Dave's direction. But Dave, how are you? You okay? This feels a bit weird because we spoke 10 minutes ago. But
yeah. Second time to record back to back. But welcome back. Both got a cup of tea in the break, which is good to see. I'm not looking forward to the mini league because Jonas. Oh, give up, game away. Ignore that I said a name there. But the winner of our mini league could really put me in some pain next season. So we'll see what that looks like. Jonah, the winner, could also be very kind to me. Just saying. But we'll see when we come to it. But yeah, otherwise, mate, looking forward to reviewing, as you say, position by position, having a little bit of look at some insight ahead of the next season. And I feel like this is something I'm pretty good at in FPL. I was a game week 1 owner, as we've said multiple times. It was basically based on me looking at the season before's data, the back end of the season, and noticing a trend that Forest's defense was improving massively. So I think there's some things we can really help people understand here, so they can start with certain teams in their team come the 25-26 season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, mate.
I agree, and I think with this stuff, we'll kind of we'll revisit this ourselves and replay it ourselves. I think just as the game announces, because I think we're looking at, as you said, looking at performances, underlying data, looking at trends, particularly in the second half of the season, is important. So I think you'll keep me honest, Dave, and I think some of the sections we might give a bit of it feels a bit robotic, and we'll give a bit of a mini intro, but that's just for us to plan for some replay value because we're super lazy when it comes to content.
Absolutely.
But should we get into it, mate?
It can be. Yeah, let's jump on. So we're starting with the top performers at the 24-25 season. So there you go. So there's the top 10 overall point scorers.
Yeah, and shout out to Fantasy Football Fix, obviously, kind of long-term friends of me, and great stats tables that you can amend and get. For as many seasons back you want, you can kind of get stats around how players have performed. You can make your own custom stats tables, right? Something that we like, because we like the underlying data, is we do like to talk about expected FPL points, right? So this is based on activities that happened in game. Statistically, how many points should they have got? We like that data. We often bring that up on a kind of weekly basis on our usual updates on a weekly basis. So yeah, we're going to talk about actual points. That's how many points they actually got in FPL terms, and then expected points. But we got the top 10 overall point scorers here. So yeah, everyone knows this, right? It's Salah with a record breaking 344 points. Then huge gap, massive gap down to Mbumo in second, 236. Palmer 214, Isak 211, Wood breaching the 200 barrier at 200, Bowen 193, Watkins 186, Visser 185, Louis Diaz 183, and then Haaland bringing it home 181. The expected points table, some similarity, some difference. Salah tops it again, but with a slightly less 332 points versus 344 of actual points. Palmer is then next in expected points, so he underperformed his underlying stats, 237. Mbumo, 213. Isak then with 200. Haaland next with 195. He underperformed his expected points. Interesting. Visser 192. Semenyo, he looks like someone who did underperform quite significantly then, but potentially interesting insight for next season. 192 expected points. Watkins 185, almost identically matches his actual points. So those that doubt expected points, expected goals, expected assists versus actual points, you see straight away there's a hell of a lot of correlation here, and there's some exact ones. Bruno Fernandes makes it 184, and then Wood is rounds up our top 10 with 181. Obviously, Wood, great season. I've hated on him in the 2024-2025 season, but he did well, underlying points and actual points. He did overperform slightly. I think, first half of the season he was running super hot, and I think he reversed to the mean, reversed to the average in the second half of the season. So, yeah, those are the players. I think for me, mate, I think those are the players I would have expected. Observations, reflections from yourself on this one, Dave?
Yeah, two things for me. So you mentioned it already. The expected model can be trusted, right? There's only 2 players in the expected points from a top 10 that aren't in the actual top 10. That's Bruno Fernandes, who's 12th overall for points, and Semenyo, who's 13th overall for points. So they might not be in the top 10, but they're pretty damn close. So I think the expected points models can be trusted. The other thing that it tells me is put your money in your attack. There's not a single defender or goalkeeper in the top 10. It's all midfielders and attackers. That's where you spend your money.
Yeah, agree. I think, Will, if you're new to this, which I doubt, but if you're new to this, we'll talk about expected points, underlying data, predicted points quite significantly. We lean on that, and I think it's just because I would prefer, controversial take, I'd prefer my teams have better expected points than actual points, just because that means for me the underlying selection was solid versus luck. But you can see over a season it evens itself out. Game week to game week there can be a variance in luck and whatnot. But like over a season it does average itself out, and I think it's statistically the best way to play the game is to try and get good XG, good expected assists, good expected overall points. But yeah, mate, I think Salah, massive shout. That's a huge kind of like record breaking season. It feels like a lot of that because he was so quiet the last quartile, right? And we're going to break the season into quartiles because it just really does tell the story of the season. And I think for both of us personally, the second half of the season, if not the final stretch, does give you a nice read in terms of the following season, right? So we're going to break it down into segments. But Salah was quiet at the last quartile, so it felt like it was all done first half of the season. But yeah, incredible season. I'm surprised Palmer had such a great season, right? It felt like he was really poor, but 200,
half of it.
214 points, 237 expected points. That's a really good season. Mbumo, exceptional player, right? Exceptional player for a number of years. And like, it feels like only the second half of this season, 2024, 2025, he got the credit, kudos, right? He's been doing it for, 2.5, 3 years, right? And like, and there's been years and times, even this year, where we've both had him and like ownership has been loaned. But yeah, great season there. Wood, I think, will be the one and only time that he'll ever appear on these stats here. Bowen, great season. I'm surprised to see Watkins so well in both the underlying data and the actual points. It felt like he wasn't playing for a lot of the season. So I think, Watkins
absolutely. Second choice.
Watkins is one to watch. And then, like Vizza and Semenyo, like expected points. That's amazing. Like they both are not on penalties, right? So I think everyone else here is on penalties outside kind of Watkins. But yeah, Vizza and Semenyo, 192 expected points, and Vizza getting 185. That's amazing seasons considering they're not on set pieces. So
Absolutely.
I think wouldn't have expected this. There's a few names I would have expected, like the top 5 for expected points. Certainly, I would have expected them. There's a few surprises there, which is nice. It gives us a little bit of variety.
Yeah, absolutely. Diaz being on the Liverpool 11 2 players. I know the only other teams have 2 players, Brentford. But, there's
no Arsenal
a
players.
couple of questions.
That's an interesting one. No Arsenal players, even though
I
they
know
finished
Arsenal players.
comfortably. Yeah, no Arsenal players. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple. Where do you think? What price do you think Salah's going to be next season?
What do you start on this year?
12.5 this year. 12.5, and Haaland
13.5. Yeah, 13.5 maybe.
And then Bumo, I believe, started at 7.5. Could have started at 8. Do you reckon he's going to be touching more Palmer price? 10.
Depends where he ends up, right? There's.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a good thing, like him going to Manchester United. That's the transfer rumor as of like 27th of May. But he's done it for like, especially if you look at in terms of like matches started. He's like one of the best FPL players around, like so he should be 9 million at least.
Yeah.
Palmer will go down a little bit. Visser will be interesting, right? I think there's a few. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like Bowen has done it now, like for a while. Is he going to be 8.5? We'll see.
Yeah, quite excited to see the prices. I think Wisser could also be on the way somewhere else. But yeah, goalkeepers, mate. Let's go position by position.
So this is the aggregate tables, of course, and I think as you alluded to, top 10 was dominated by forwards and particularly midfielders. So I thought bring a bit of flavour and let's kind of look at the kind of goalkeepers. On the pages we got like the top 10, but like let's do the top 5 just out of simplicity, right? You guys don't want to hear us repeating and top 5 overall top kind of point scorers were Pickford with 158, then Sells with 150, Raya with 142, Flecken 138, and then Henderson with 135. Then and all sorted. Then Sanchez, Onana, Leno, Becker, Martinez, and then expected points. Some similar names but different order, right? So Raya was the top expected points, 151. Then Pickford at 138, Sells at 136. Henderson at 130 and Leno at 129. So not a huge difference, but I think you can kind of see straight away where some players have been unfortunate. I thought it would have been a bigger gap, but I felt like Raya was slightly unlucky, but only a difference of 9 expected points versus actual points. So he was there or thereabouts, and then Sells outperformed his underlying stats by 14. It's not a huge gap. Similar goes to Pickford.
Squinting.
It felt like this year there wasn't really a standout keeper, right? I think for the first half of the season, I would say Sells was a standout, but thereafter you probably would have said Pickford. But I don't think there's been like an amazing 4.5 keeper that has stood out from the crowd, because like Flecken I'm surprised Flecken was 4th and Henderson is there. It's felt like a very pick any keeper and stick with them like this year. I don't know if you feel the same.
I do. In fact, the notes I've wrote me. So I usually, although this season I didn't, but I usually get 2 £4.5 million keepers and I swap them. Do like a fixture swing. But what I've wrote here is set and forget is the way. That's exactly what this season's taught me. Just pick a keeper, stick him in the net. Don't worry about doing any transfers. Pickford looks like he could be, depending on how Everton start next season, could be a really good option. They improved defensively under Moyes, so he could be a really good pick if he's still there. But I'm assuming he'll come in. He was 5 million this season. The fact that he's come in as the top scoring defender, I'm assuming that price will not be going down. I agree, mate. I think
he'll stay at 5. Yeah, I think like looking at the price points, top 10 scorers. I don't see any reason. I've always been a big proponent of this, and like I've regretted having people like Raya for the end stretch of this season myself. But like, 4.5. Like it didn't take a genius to think. Sells, Fleck, and Henderson. We both started with Henderson. I think we both considered Sells at the beginning of the season. They were good bets. Sells 4.5, Flecken 4.5, Henderson 4.5. Sanchez was 4.5, right? I believe as well.
It was. Yeah.
There's a few 5 millions there, but there's a plenty of, any like common sense would select these as the good 4.5, right? It's for like mid-table or better teams with solid defenses. Like I think it's like the points difference isn't there for the premiums, and you can see Raya at 5.5, he got lucky at the beginning of the year. I remember like he was getting some kind of quite lucky hauls, but like there's no difference, right? I think it's just find who you think is the best defense with a 4.5 keeper and select that. I don't feel there's any logic saying otherwise.
But yeah, I agree. Defenders, pal.
Yeah, defenders like so. Before I go into detail here, Vardio scored the most. It felt like with 153 points. It felt like a really poor season for defenders, right? So in previous years, it's felt like there's been multiple defenders over 150 points, if not knocking 180 points, and obviously, like a few years with Liverpool defenders scoring over 200 points, right? But that's obviously long gone. But it felt like this year was quite average, right? There weren't great defenders or defender options, and you can kind of see here, like I'll go for the top 10 of actual points. Vardy 153, Trent 148, Milenkovic 145, Van Dijk 143, Munoz 142, Kirkes 134, Cucurella 133, Saliba 130, Murillo 130, Aina 128. So yeah, there's some Liverpool players there. There's some obviously Forest defence appear here. There's no one really a standout. It's kind of quite boring. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree. I think comparing it to the expected points, Munoz 173, by the way underperformed his stats. It just shows the importance of the attacking return, right? And I know that sounds obvious, but if you take Munoz as the prime example, expected points 173. Palace for expected goals against were 11th in the table for the season. Expected goals conceded at 58.88. Bottom half defence. But Munoz is top for expected points based on the fact top 5 for shots amongst all defenders and top 5 for attempted assists. In fact, he had more shots on target than any other defender in the game. So that tells me maybe next season I might start with less focus on who's going to give me a clean sheet and more on who might get me a little bit of an attacking edge.
No, well, that's spot on, mate. I think the expected points table. So Munoz, like you said, 173 is the top. Vardio 167, Eight Nori next 165. Vardio, depending on his position, has attacking threat. Munoz and Eight Nori is screaming out there. It's like, hey, they could be. I see the price point, though. They could be exceptional options, particularly Eight Nori, right? Because he didn't get the points this year. At times he did it, but if he's 5 million or ideally less, he'll be potentially an awesome pick. I mean, Kirkes similar. He got the points, but had like higher expected points as well. 150 versus the 134 he actually scored. He probably will move from Bournemouth to Liverpool, like the kind of rumor is. But again, an attacking, spot on, an attacking defender. So I think those expected points have got green shoots in terms of there's some like nice attacking options. But I feel like this year, the attacking options has been better than going for like clean sheets. Clean sheets have been like really quite rare and difficult to get. And I guess, for me this year, there hasn't been a standout defense. Forest was good for the second half of the season, first half of the season, but was really getting quite lucky. Arsenal have been the best defense on average, but haven't been hitting the heights of like they would previously. Teams like Man City just like fallen off a cliff, right? So defenders have been a really disappointing year, right?
Yeah.
No, hardly any premium options. Like Trent is 148, but he's been in and out the team. He's had injuries and whatnot. Vardio hasn't scored hardly anything. Like Milenkovic 4.5. Munoz, he started at 4.5. Was he 5?
Good question. 5? I'll check. I think he was 5.
I think Kirkes might be 5. Cucurella might be 5. Murillo 4.5. Aina 4.5. There's a lot of value there. So again, I think obviously can't read this into next season, but for a couple of seasons, it feels like investing in a premium defense.
Yeah.
2 or 3 premium defenders in a good attack. That's not appeared here. But what it does suggest is that, hey, those attacking players for maybe not as strong teams, like that's an interesting, well, it's certainly something that happened this kind of year. But I think both you and I at times went for double premium defenders, if not triple, with like the likes of Trent and a Saliba and a Gabriel. Just didn't work. This year at all.
Absolutely.
And it's not even the expected points aren't like kind of screaming out for that as well.
Absolutely, Mason. It's money's better spent elsewhere. Munoz was 5, Kirk has 4.5, but So yeah, I think I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. Look at those 5 million attacking focused defenders.
Is
Munoz ain't Nori
is
standouts.
is that trend going to continue into next year? Because some years the premium defenders and like great defensive have been like a good route for fantasy, or do you think it's still like, hey, target attackers and then attacking defenders, even if they're from poor, like weaker teams, weaker in inverted
I
commas?
think genuinely, I think the latter. And the reason I say that is the way the teams play are different, right? So Liverpool, as an example, now got slot in. Maybe have a 10-second silence for one of the greatest FPL players of all time, Trent Alexander-Arnold, that we will not be able to pick next season. That's the end of the 10 seconds. But like Slot doesn't play the way Klopp plays. So Robertson and Trent, or whoever's going to be there, Frimpong and Kerkez, they're not going to be getting into the positions your Robertson and your Trents ever used to get into. If you look at even Man City when they had Cancelo,
Mm.
Guardiola gets some attacker returns, but it's mainly off corners or pop shots. He's not getting into the box anywhere near the way
Well,
Cancelo
he
is
got
getting
his
into the
returns when he
box.
was playing as left winger. He's now playing as centre back, right? Which is
Yeah,
the issue. Yeah.
yeah. So I just think the way these teams play, the ones that you're like, okay, they're like more likely to get a clean sheet and an attacker return. I just think the teams have started to play different. You look at Arsenal, maybe Lewis Kelly could be a nice option. He seemed to be getting into the box a lot for Arsenal. If he's going to be the
Well,
start and left back, probably the best defender
he can't even
in
get minutes,
best
right?
defense in the league.
That's an issue, right? Yeah, like sometimes you're playing with these teams, you're playing a lottery round minutes, and like obviously there's not the upside
Exactly.
here. Is what it's saying. I mean, someone like a Gabriel, I think obviously his minutes were impacted. He's as we know, a threat from corners and whatnot. I
Corners.
wouldn't
Yeah,
discount some
yeah.
players like that, like come next year, but I'd be, might depend on fixtures how they land next season. Um, yeah, I'll be looking at the Anthony Robinsons, the Norries, the Munozes, right?
Absolutely.
The Lewis Halls, the
Yeah,
Liveramentos. Um,
I'm with you.
yeah,
I agree. I'm completely with you. Yeah, I don't want to be spending 7 million on a Andy Robinson just because the teams don't play that way anymore.
I don't
Um,
think there's going to be any. I think that like next season pricing points, there'd be a lot of 5.5, but not many 6 million pluses. I think Vardiol might be, and Van Dijk might be the only ones.
Maybe Gabriel or Saliba,
So, yeah, so
but yeah,
Saliba,
agree,
Gabriel. Yeah,
agree.
disappointing from defenders. So disappointing,
Yeah,
disappointing. I have to say.
well, midfield is a bit more
Um,
exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we covered a lot of these guys in the overall top 10, but like, yeah, just to go through the list: Salah and Bumo, Palmer, Bowen, Diaz, Bruno Fernandes, Semenyo, Rogers. Interesting, Murphy and Cliver, and then expected points. Yeah, quite a close correlation. Salah, Palmer, and Bumo, Semenyo, Fernandes, Louis Diaz, Sarr, who didn't appear on the actual kind of top points, Rogers, Boeing,
Yeah,
and Eze. So yeah, again, you can see actual points and expected points, not an exact but a close correlation, which is pretty cool how that averages out over the season. We spoke about some of the players anyway in the overall top 10. Any additional guys that you want to mention? Any notable absences as well from this list?
oh, good question about the absences. Never even thought about that. I was really impressed with the emergence of Jacob Murphy and Rogers. Two 5.5 million midfielders
Yeah,
finished in the top 10 for points overall. Really impressed with them. I'm going to assume both of them are going to jump to at least 7 million next season,
yeah.
if not maybe 7.5. Um, but yeah, I don't know, who are you thinking is missing? I feel like you've got somebody in mind.
Um, I don't know where I was going for that. I mean, there's no Man City midfielder,
Yeah,
which is notable. There's no Arsenal midfielder, so Saka would be on here if he played a full season or 3/4 of a season, right? So I think that's very different from previous seasons, right? So a lot of this is in all the tables is a reflection of how many minutes people have got, of course. I think like what this is saying to me, particularly expected points. A couple of observation. Expect the points. That tells me penalties and set pieces are super important. Salah, penalties. Palmer, penalties. Mbumo, penalties. Semenyo, corners. Fernandez, penalties. Luis Diaz, attacking team. Sa, attacking team. Rogers, attacking team. Bowen, pens. Got them eventually. Eze, pens, right? So I think those set pieces are, and kind of like penalties are really important. And then, like, you don't need to go for, you need to go for talisman from great teams, right? So people don't need to be pissing about with a Foden type player, right? Just to kind of get coverage from a good team. You need to get the best players who are going to get most points, and like these talisman who get 90 plus and on set players, right? So let's ignore the traditional top 6, right? Mbumo, and look at the top things. Mbumo, right? Bowen, Fernandez, Semenyo, Rogers, Murphy, Cliver. They're all like, yeah. Cliver's a bit of a different one because he had like a real kind of like purple patch, right? But then, you have Eze, Sa. He's just like the key attackers from some okay teams, right? But I think it's when you got those decisions, just focus on the player, less so the team, less so the glamorous team, right? I mean, a lot of periods in the season, I'd say, let's do a comparison of 2 players on this table, right? Eze and Luis Diaz, that's an interesting one. I think a lot of times during the season, Eze would have been the better option, actually, because he's always going to start. He's on set pieces. Luis Diaz would have a rotation risk at times and not on set pieces, right? So I know it evens itself out, but I think that's a good example. Or Luis Diaz versus Bowen, for example. So I think it's that's my second observation, is that, like, these lower half teams or these mid-table teams, they got exceptional players that are going to score well. You just need to get those players that are the talisman on the set pieces and just going to get 90 minutes.
Don't think about it too much. Do you want the team? They've got the fixtures. Get the main man. Difficult with budget.
Sometimes people will obsess. Oh, I really need an Arsenal midfielder, and they would go, not this season, but they'd go for an Ødegaard, right? Or, I need a Man City player. I'm going to go for a rotation risk Foden or a rotation risk De Bruyne back in the day, right? I think that some of these players just give you that certainty of minutes that's just so important.
Yeah. Be interested to see what happens with Foden and his price, given this season. But yeah, agree. Just a lot of people on this list. You look at last season, and they all scored well. Especially in the top 6. Maybe take out Luis Diaz. But they're up there every season, so there's a reason for it.
But yeah, I mean, Semenyo and like Mbumo, Bowen, I think they've confirmed themselves as Bruno have confirmed themselves as it's kind of really like fantasy gold, right? Semenyo, Rogers, Murphy, they've been emerging. Murphy will be interesting to see what happens at Newcastle, right? Because I think there was that nervousness. Rogers, I'm kind of surprised that his expected points has exceeded his actual points, because I felt like he was lucky. I felt like his expected stats were never great, but like obviously across the season he's played a lot. I think I did ask any players that are missing here. I think Saka, there's players who have been injured, right? That I think sometimes when we're looking ahead to the next season, right, there'll be some great players here that have had nice purple patches but have been injured or out of their teams for things. So Gordon, I think, would be one for Newcastle that I'd expect to be back there. Saka, the most obvious one.
Agree. What about City? Do you reckon any City with Rodri back? Do you reckon any City midfielders will find the way in?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's about finding who the right one is, right? So and positions, really. I think what we're saying here is minute certainty is really, really important, right? I don't really want to run that roulette until someone becomes a clear option, and that could be triggered by injuries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Marmoush. As soon as Haaland was out, there he is. There's your obvious pick. Yeah, get it. What about strikers? Unsurprising to see Isaac on top of both, right?
Yeah, no, spot on. So yeah, midfielders have got a wealth of options, and I think when you look at this, then there was less of a selection, obviously. It kind of suggests that maybe a 3-5-2 is a more interesting formation versus 3-4-3. But I think a lot of us, you and I included, default to 3-4-3. But yeah, like top 10, just to go through it in terms of actual points: Isak, Wood, Watkins 186, Visser 185, Haaland 181, Cunha 178, Mateta 150, Jimenez 147, Strand Larson 145, and then Delap at 132. And then expected points: Isak, Haaland, Visser, Watkins, Wood, Mateta, Cunha, Jimenez, Evan Nilsson, and Delap. Thoughts, reflections, observations, mate?
It's quite match for match, isn't it? Like the only names that swap is Strand Larson got 145 points. Evan Nielsen doesn't make the list, but he was ninth or expected. So, yeah, pretty much match for match. Unsurprised, as I say, unsurprising to see Isak and Wood up at the top. Watkins, you mentioned before, like considering there was times when Durant started at the beginning of the season, and then Rashford started ahead of him towards the end of the season. Quite interesting to see him up in third. But mate, I think the main thing I take from it is there is a lot of value in mid-price forwards. Wissa, less than 8 million. Cunha, less than 8 million. Wood, less than 8 million. But there they are, second, fourth, and sixth in the table. So I don't think you need to spend. If you at that time we would in episode 1 of today, episode 81. For those that haven't seen it, we were speaking about my quartile 2, and the reason I jumped to 57k in rank is they had Cunha and Wissa, and they just absolutely dominated.
No,
On 7 points on average per
has
game.
done exceptionally well considering he's not on penalties. That's a great season in expected points and actual points. And I think again, similar to Mbumo, he's had enough of a read that hey, he's a real star from an FPL point of view. I'm always cynical and skeptical when it's a striker without penalties, but he's made a difference. I mean, looking at this table, I'm kind of bored a little bit, to be honest. I'm not getting as excited as the midfield one. So it does suggest, hey, that 3-5-2 position could be interesting, particularly because actually sometimes the limiting factor is how good can your fifth midfield be versus like, hey, a third, and you've got a dead third striker spot. We showed there were some really good 5.5 midfielders that you could kind of play, or indeed like you do a rotating three, you have a rotating final attacker. I think that's standing out for me. We'll see what the price points are for next year. Yeah. I mean, like we've spoken about, Isak has been the best player, has been an anomaly because of Haaland being injured a lot. Watkins, very good season despite feeling like he's in and out. I mean, number 9 in both those tables. I'm expecting big seasons next year. I'm excited to see how they progress. So Strand Larson, 145 points, kind of a consistent starter, but he has been in and out, and there's been some injuries. That's a very good season considering how bad Wolves were in the first half. And Evan Nilsson again, he's had periods of injury, right? 141 expected points. I think they'll be eventually all get onto penalties, right? So I'm expecting a big breakout season from Evan Nilsson as well. So I'm excited to see how the Wolves and Bournemouth fixtures land for 2025, 2026. So I'm expecting big things from them.
Yeah, interesting one on Strand Larson because Cunha's about to. It's been agreed 65 million to Man United.
Strange
he's going to lose. He's going to. Yeah. Money, right? But he's about to move to United. So Strand Larson is going to become the main man up front. So that's good news. But obviously Cunha is very creative. So I suppose it depends on who comes in.
Well, Strand Larson has been the main man up front. Cunha doesn't play as a forward, right? So it's a very strange. That's why I said it's a strange move for Manchester United, because he's just kind of just like false 9, Roman 10, whatever. Like sometimes plays on the wing. It's just like a bit of a random position. Good player, of course, right? Great player. Strand Larson did very well when Cunha was out. Cunha, don't forget, second half of the season has had injuries and also multiple suspensions, including a 5-game week ban for violent conduct. Strand Larson was banging them in, so it didn't hold him back. So, yeah, I don't think that's an issue. I think I'm excited for both of those players.
Yeah, nice. And then we said we'd touch on. I know we're going still through top game weeks, breaking it up into quartiles.
Yeah, so I guess reason why we're doing this is that the season as a whole doesn't really tell much of a story, right? Because it's so big, right? And like, some of these players have scored consistently throughout the year. Other players have had like purple patches and whatnot. Other players have had injuries. So, similar to our previous episode, episode 81, where we went for our own season reviews. So the players we're going to split by position: goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and do that. Full quarters: game week 1 to 10, game week 11 to 19.
19.
20 to 28, and then 29 to 38. So we've got these kind of rough quartiles to break the season in up, and then we're going to look at expected points and actual points. Look who's doing great, and then from an expected and an actual perspective, again, stats are from Fantasy Football Fix, and then call out any observations from our seasons as well, because I think this can kind of flesh out some of our little anecdotes, mate. So whilst I think of my anecdotes, mate, do you want to do the honours and say the kind of top performing guys across positions?
Absolutely. We'll start with the keepers. So we just spoke about the importance of, maybe a set and forget. £4.5, £5 million keeper's probably enough. Well, the top performer was Sells, both on the expected points with 43 and actual points on 48. Big surprise, Onana's second top performing keeper. We all know the mistakes he's made this season. In fact, he should have been sent off in game week 1 to 10, if I'm not mistaken, against Wolves, and gave away a penalty, ended up keeping a clean sheet, and no penalty was given. But he's massively outperformed. Similar sort of story with Sanchez. I think that the defender's a bit more interesting, mate. The expected point shows Trent top, Digne, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Aina, and Dallo, all of which at that stage of the season are playing on the wings, right? So they're very much attacking defenders. So we were just saying maybe
Gabriel.
Gabriel, granted. Yeah, ignore the Gabriel, but the others are all very much left or right back. So get crosses into the box.
Luca Dean, owners must feel a bit annoyed there. He's like, second
Honestly.
expected points, 50 points, nowhere to be seen on the actual points tally. Although we've just shown the top six.
Classic. He's a classic Digne.
Yeah.
He's an FPL. What's the word I'm looking for? Every time anybody goes for him, he doesn't do anything. He's a troll, FPL troll. Whereas my main man, there he is. Top 5 for expected, 3rd overall. Good lad. Sort me out.
Spot on. And then midfielders, obviously, and this is like Salah dominance. Like he started off super hot, 93 actual points. He was running hot, right? 80 expected points, which is still exceptional, but he was running significantly hot. And if you compare that to the top going forward, Haaland expected points 76, and then 77 actual points, so it was on par. And like a few of us who had a bad start, me included, right? Part of that story was without going for a Forest defender, right? So Sells or an Aina, or insert any number of their defenders. I went without that, but also game week 6, I think you did the same mistake, mate. I took out Salah. I started with Salah and Haaland, but I took out Salah and kept Haaland on my game week 6 wild cards last season. Salah was running a bit hot, right? I think the difference between their expected points is only 4 points. The actual difference between their scores was quite significant, 15 points, right? So that he was running hot. But midfielders and forwards, actual points, Palmer, Mbeumo, Saka, Diaz, and McNeil. That's kind of quite surprising seeing McNeil, although there is a big gap between him and the top 5. Forwards, Wood, Welbeck, surprised to see him there. Jackson, surprising to see him there as well. Watkins, Cunha. Jackson might be an interesting person for next season, the coming season. Sorry, if and when he's fit. And then expected points: Palmer, Saka, Semenyo, and Mbeumo. Diaz sit behind Salah, and then for forwards it's Wood, Watkins, Jackson's, Havertz, and Welbeck. So a player like Wood, he's running hot, and a lot of people who didn't own him were getting annoyed by that. But his underlying points, 58 expected points versus 66 actual points, he was really good. So he was the guy to start with as a cheap thing. And I think the fixtures hinted at that. He was aided by being on penalties, but like that was a great start. A great start to the season. I'm really shocked seeing Jackson there. So like I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
We mentioned Saka, right? He wasn't appearing on the top things. He started the season really well, right? So just behind Salah, um, Haaland, Palmer, those big guys, and Boomer in terms of like points. But yeah, it's 64 expected points, 66, 65 actual points, right? So one to keep an eye out, of course, when he's fit. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Mbumo is just going to be there the whole season. But like Semenyo, he's not someone that just came in the second half of the season. He started strong as well, 60 expected points.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's my story, mate. I think in terms of players there.
Fifth on the expected points forwards. Havertz, obviously injured for a lot of the season.
Mm.
Would you? I know you were a big fan of Havertz last season. Would you be tempted if his price drops a little bit because he's missed out on so much of this one?
No,
No, stay away, just in case he goes back into the midfield.
I don't. He did enough whilst he was playing forward. I had him
Yeah.
the season before last, like from game week 1, and like great underlying stats, but then convert. But also, that just screams out rotation risk, right? Both existing
Yeah,
players that he's got at Arsenal, but like I'd be shocked if they don't bring a big centre forward,
agree.
right?
Agree. They don't. I think they will.
Yeah, like
Uh,
I mean, yeah, Jackson's intriguing out of that strategy thing. 57 expected points, 58 actual points. Like I think flat as
yeah.
to deceive, but depending on fixtures, he could be kind of like interesting. There are any surprising names? We mentioned McNeil, like squeezing
Welbeck.
into Welbeck. Yeah, Welbeck's had a low key great season, right? But yeah, like third top points in terms of like forwards, and he overperformed, but yeah, it's still 50 expected points. That's decent. That's sixth best out forwards.
Just
But yeah, I
reminded me
think the
that
rest of it is like it's explained by.
yeah, the standard. But sorry, I think there's a delay again, so apologies, mate. But there was a point in the season, early doors, where I wanted to get in a
Mm,
Brighton attacker and a striker. And remember when we were chatting, I was like, Welbeck's got the better stats. He's the better pick than Pedro. I'm gonna go Welbeck. I'm gonna go Welbeck. I'm gonna go Welbeck. And then went
mm,
for Pedro when he was injured for about 4 games, and I should have went for Welbeck because I bottled it. I should have done. I should have
yeah,
done it. Proofs in the pudding, man. He's there. He's got the points.
no, for sure. They had the nice run, didn't they, Brighton, which is why
Yeah.
you're eyeing up Pedro as well. But yeah, I think yeah, there's some interesting players here. Like, but again, a good correlation between expected points and actual points across all positions. I think there's the story of this quarter was like Salah's just incredible performance and a little bit of overperformance in terms of actual points, but not radically so. The strength of Wood and then the Forest defense, and then hey, the usual suspects elsewhere chipping in whilst they were fit. Mbumo, Saka, Palmer, right? So yeah, I think and yeah, you had a solid start. I had a poor start, and I think that's kind of reflected into kind of like some of the players we did and didn't have. But let's go on to the next one,
Agree.
mate, if that's all right. So next quarter, game week 11 to 19. So we're what's it? It's correlated into maybe the October to December period. I think roughly right. So right into
Thereabouts.
the deep of it. The Champions League and European games are on. Um, you did very well here, right? I think this is when
I
you
did.
you rapidly improved your rank from
Yeah.
what 50k.
Huge.
You ended this period at
When yeah,
50k.
57K by the end of game week 19, and unsurprising to see Salah top of both expected and overall points considering the season he had. But the big ones for me here, mate. Um, I did a lot of Palmer captaining, mainly prior to when I had Salah in, the same as you from game week 6 onwards. But he got me quite a lot of points, 61 overall, expected points of 64, so it was on pretty much level par. Big one for me, and I got lucky, right? Cunha up front, expected points 46, but ended up delivering 64. Massive overperformance over these 8 game weeks, but I was very much there for them. Big help in terms of my overall rank. Um, and then I'm surprised not to see Wissa on here, mates, because I had Wissa at a similar time, game week 9 to about 15, and he got me 7 points per game. So I'd expect him to have been maybe a little bit higher than he is on these lists because he doesn't appear, which
Uh,
surprises me a little bit.
he
Maybe
comes
came
in.
into his
I
own
think
a
it's just
little
I
bit.
think it's it's arbitrary nature. I think he'll come into the next one for sure. I had a shocker of this call. That was a shocker for me. So I'll call out both points and expected points where like players stand out for me, and then we'll do a bit of overview for those listening and not seeing of like who are the top players. So defenders, the second top top point scorer during this period was Lewis Hall, 47 points. I think that was an incredible period. Let me see my notes where. Well, he was averaging 10 points a game for a small period, and I had a choice of bringing in Colwill from Chelsea or Lewis Hall. Well, it was a 50-50 split up, but like Colwill had a rely on clean sheets because he got no attacking threat. Hall had clean sheets and attacking threat. Hall went crazy. It was playing like prime Roberto Carlos, getting assists, goals, everything. 47 points during this period. A lot of that was kind of like clustered around 5 game weeks. I got killed around that. You can see Chelsea had good fixtures because actually the second and third top scorers for points as midfielders were Palmer and Enzo. So that does show there was like a nice Chelsea run. But that was a hell of a cock up. So they stood out again. Sells is the second top scoring goalkeeper there, 37 points. Aina 42 is the top is the sixth top scoring defender. I didn't have any Forest cover at all during this period. Mentioned that both of us started without Salah, right? We didn't have him until game week 14, so halfway through this period. 109 points. Wow. Expected points 99. So that's the peak of the season for Salah. Wow, like missing him for that period, especially with really high captaincy, was tough. Some random names I think in the midfielders, right? Enzo, Ahmad, and Sarr all scoring 50 points. Wan-Bissaka 46 is the third best defender. That's kind of interesting. Can't really remember that. I got killed by forwards as well. Isak was by far the best forward during this period. 65 expected points and actual points of 77. I can see a trend where he overperformed his underlying stats, but he was still a great pick. I didn't have him for a lot of this period. I think I only squeezed him right at the end, so I got killed by Isak. Cunha, on the other hand, I did have through this period, and thank God I did. 46 expected points, 64 actual points. I felt like he was running hot and being lucky, and lo and behold, he was.
Absolutely.
Who aren't we covered? Defenders expected points and actual points. Saliba top both 62 expected points, actual points 51. Munoz, we've mentioned about that guy a few times. 51 expected points. No, that's the second best. Although he doesn't appear in the top the list on the other side. Ray was the top expected keeper. He was third in the actual points. Palmer's still there. Like we
again, with the keeper, mate. He is chipping away, yeah, but with the keeper, Raya might have been top expected, but not by his overall points. He's third, as you say, but he's not miles. For a £5.5 million keeper,
I think the issues. Well, it depends who you picked, right? If you picked Flecken, you would be miles off, right? I picked Flecken during this period. Flecken was one of the top scoring keepers of the year, but I picked him for this run, which didn't work. If you picked Sells, you would be laughing, right?
Yeah,
it was about picking but I think all the signs were there at the beginning of the season and into this period that Sells was like the standout during this time, for sure. I think expected points. Son is there, 49 points is the fifth most expected points. That's probably the first and only time we're going to see Son on these tables, which is really interesting. Mate, any other place to call out, or be good to move to the next segment?
Again, just because I had him from game week 1. If I've not mentioned it, so I need to keep bringing him up. He's did well, top 5 for expected, top 6 for overall. But yeah, easy game, mate. Easy game. I went from 1 million to 57k in this period because quite simply, I had Salah, Isak, Cunha, and Palmer, the top 4 point scorers in the. Why don't I should just do that every quarter. Get the top 4 point scorers in. Just do that. Easy game. Yeah, just play around with that. But this is where it all fell apart for me. Quarter 3, absolutely dropped off a cliff.
Oh, do you want to select the the top point scorers across those different positions that you didn't own, that you thought really harmed you, and then say the guys you did own from expected points that were unlucky.
Yeah. So couple going into it. So firstly, Munoz. Never didn't own him once during the season. He was
Yeah.
so good. He got 53 and 52 points. So it's no, he's top point scorer. Now we mentioned before about how good he was. He was the expected points top defender in the game. This is clearly when he starts to come into his own. Didn't own him. In fact, looking at that defensive list, mate, the top 6 defenders in the game during this period in terms of points scored, I didn't own any of them at any point in the season. That's hurt. All my defenders scored next to nothing in these game weeks. Looking at the midfielders, okay, I own Salah, but so did every man and their dog, so it made absolutely no difference to me in terms of rank. Whereas looking at the rest of it, Clive I owned, but not for enough. Foden didn't own him at all, and Bumo had him, but again, not for enough of it. And Fernandez, despite the fact he started off for me fairly well, I sold him in game week 23, and he ended up being the fifth top scoring defender during this game week. So that was a big mistake. Forward wise, mate, Wood again didn't own him. I'm trying to think when I bought Mateta. I don't think I bought Mateta until later in the season, so I probably missed out quite a lot of points there. And again, Watkins, I missed out quite a lot of points on. In terms of where I feel like I maybe was a bit more unlucky, I did bring in Otara when Bournemouth started to have a nice run. Expected points of 51, didn't get anywhere near it. Ended up getting me 13 points in the 5 games I owned him. So his stats were much better than what he performed. So yeah, felt a little bit unlucky there. This is when you start to see Palmer's drop off, and I kept him till maybe game week 26. Expected points 53, but he's not in the top performers. So again, probably a little bit unlucky there. And I had people like Trent. Didn't get anywhere near the points he was expected to. So yeah, that's where I'm at, mate. So I held next to none of the top scorers. So it killed me. What about you?
Yeah. I'll talk about just general observations before talking about my team. So it's probably quite hard actually to extract some kind of proper insight from my own team. But like Palace stand out, particularly from a defensive point of view. But this game week 20 to 28 period does coincide with a period where they had like better fixtures, right? So they started off quite not very well, right? But then they brought it around. But that was driven by fixtures, right? So Henderson is the second top scoring keeper. Their defenders, Munoz, I think the top scoring defender was Trent during this period. Sorry about the typo there. We'll blame it on the intern.
I do it plenty of times, pal. Don't you worry about that.
So yeah, I think Munoz was the second top scoring kind of defender, 52. Then Gahey, Lacroix, and then Richards. So the whole back four for Palace were in the top 6 defenders there. And then Mateta, yeah, scoring 54 points. Eze and Sarr, interestingly, don't appear. So yeah, Palace are a team that really kind of stand out here. Very random that Foden is there as a 60 points scored, the third best midfielder during this period. But he's nowhere to be seen on the expected points, right? So as Foden does, he probably just got a little bit lucky.
There was a couple of games, like 4 games, mate, when he scored 2 in 1, then he like back to back he scored in the 4 games, and then got benched again.
Yeah, agree. He's a very, very random player. Kluivert, I think when a player scored 70 points in this, what's just 9 game weeks, you got to kind of sit up and look. This was when Kluivert was going insane, getting penalties and getting like hat tricks and whatnot. But 70 points, second top scorer over this kind of like a period. Backed up with the underlying stats, 56 expected points over this period like that. That's something you've got to stand up and notice. Salah was still doing great things, right, and still overperforming during this period. Wood, for those that didn't own him, annoyingly was doing very well. And I believe, mate, there was a. I think Cunha got banned or injured, and there was a choice that people had to make, and like you could have gone Wood, but you went Wizard maybe, or you went someone else.
Yeah, I think I went somebody else. There was also a choice I could have went Gakpo, and it was the week he went and got 19 points.
There's a period when like there was a very obvious move that a lot of people went to bring Wood during this, and yeah, Wood's 52 expected points, but then 66 points. This was like the frustrating period not to own Wood. I did good through this period though. I gained quite a lot of ranks and whatnot. I think that was really driven by had Salah captain every week, had Trent played in every week. I had Mbumo and Bruno Fernandes. They were chipping away with 56 and 54 points respectively during this period. So yeah, there was some like differentials that treated me well. And I had Isaac in my team that right, so he wasn't harming me. 47 points expected and actual kind of like points as well. So yeah.
Found it. He got banned for game week 28, 29, 30, and 31. So it'd be the next screen. And it looks as though I bought in Wood for him. But Gakpo got 19 points.
I swear there was another moment like during this
To be
period.
fair, he seems like the sort of player that gets banned pretty much most game weeks.
Yeah, spot on.
He got away with one. But yeah, there was a moment he went off a half time against Tottenham in 19, didn't play in 20, and then only got half a game in 21.
That was the moment. That was the moment just leading into this where a lot of people went to Wood, and I think we debated it, and it was probably the obvious one. And then Wood's 19, 12 points, 28 points, 21, 9 points, 22, 12 points, 23, 2 points, 24, 17, 25, 9, 26, 5. So I think that was the moment that game where Cunha went off injured. I think he went off injured when it wasn't a ban, that one. I think he went off injured.
We benched him instead of moving to Wood. I hate Wood. The good news is, for the last quarter, Wood disappears. And my main man, Wissa, takes pride and place.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I'll kick off on this one. This one's nice, right? Because I think this feels very different from all the other ones where it seemed to be like Salah, Palmer, insert some other players, Wood, Isaac. Like this one's got a bit, and then just the kind of Forest defense. This feels a bit of variety. So I like this one. I like this one a lot. I'm gonna look at the expected points, just call out some standouts here, right? 8 Nori, right? We're talking about like people want to keep an eye on for next season. There's some interesting defenders here, right? So Newcastle obviously appear here because they had more fixtures because of double game weeks and whatnot, and had a nice fixture run. But yeah, Share, Burn, Livramento, all in the top 6 expected points. I think that would be predicted. But then 8 Nori, yeah, that's really cool. Like 56 points, the top expected points for a defender during the period. And he scored 47, 4th best. I think that's
did well.
Good to see that. Who else stands out? Midfield points, right? So I'll talk about some people that just killed my season. I wildcarded game week 30 and transferred out some excellent players and ignored some excellent players, right? So I transferred out Bowen and Mbumo, the top 2 got overall point scorers during this period. 73 for Bowen. Bowen was running incredibly hot though, 53 expected points and then 73 actual points, right? So really killed me. And then Mbumo, I got him back, but yeah, 53 expected points, 63 actual points. I missed a few double-digit hauls from him for the only time of the season I brought him out. And Eze was a great option that I consciously ignored. Instead, I brought in Mateta as my second Palace attacker. I think Saar would have been my team regardless. 52 expected points for Eze and then 62 actual points. He was great. So those 3 killed me. On the plus side, yeah, I managed to benefit from Murphy's hot run, 49 expected points and 58 actual ones. But yeah, those midfielders were probably the difference between my 80k and like, hey, a top 25k kind of rank. So yeah, I want to call out those midfielders as hey, those obvious picks were then like fair play. They did well underlying stats and then punished me with their actual points.
Yeah, get you. I think the same for me, mates. Didn't have Eze, didn't have Bowen. Caught some of Mbumo's hot form. Got him in just as he scored 18 points. That was a nice game week transfer when I bought him back in for those points.
Yeah,
quite happy with that one. But Wissa's my standout, man. Expected points 61, exact points 61. Absolutely flew in that last part of the season. Caught quite a lot of that. Interestingly, the first time Salah hasn't been top for expected points in the season when you break it into the quartiles. Wissa expected more points than Salah in the last. Now, granted, Salah probably turned off a little bit because Liverpool had won the league for about 5 of these games, but shows you how good Wissa was, as you say. No set pieces, but absolutely flew at the last part of the season.
He's still there though, Salah, which is mad, right? He's still 59 point expected points for the quartile, the second best expected points out of all players, right? And I would say he was non-existent for the final quarter, but it shows that he's always there.
Yeah. That's why he's the king of FPL.
I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised.
And then Wood dropped off a cliff, which is interesting because Forest were still gunning for the Champions League until the final day, so they always had something to play for. But just form just completely went.
They played well, but where they finished was a fair position, if not a little bit exaggerated, right? They were running hot. I think if you go to some of the previous pages, you would have seen their actual points scored was far better than their expected points, which showed that they were running hot, getting a little bit lucky. I think actual points looks a good story for you, Share obviously, but then Vardy and Ruben Diaz, you went double City defense for a good portion of this period. That was a great selection. That was another thing I thought was right, but screwed myself out with some dumb wildcard decisions. I went for Savinho was my third Man City player on the wildcard 30. That was always a bit silly. You went sensible and you got the points for it. So I think that was a good move.
I Pope for a bit. He was one of my Newcastle defenders. Got lucky with saving a pen mind, so massively overperformed. But I'll take him. And then 3 of the top 4 strikers: Wissa, Marmoush, and Isaac. Although I think Marmoush and Isaac ended up picking themselves towards the end, and unsurprisingly in the top performers. But yeah, not bad. I mean, I'm assuming people like Trossard and Sessegnon, mate, because of the minutes risk. They're just never in your thinking.
It just depends if they are getting minutes, right? Sometimes you can kind of roll the dice here with these players, but I think interesting kind of final quarter, which I think some of it is dictated by amount of fixtures and kind of injuries and whatnot. But yeah, nice to see a bit of variety here versus like the kind of regular names that we've seen. And I think these stat tables, we've looked at them really in detail ourselves and found some really interesting trends and themes, and it really does help us tell our stories of the season, what went well and what didn't. So obviously we'll probably put these on X as well, like these tables themselves. But I think for those on YouTube, I think take your time, pause it, and have a look at these and digest in your own time. We found them pretty interesting.
Absolutely did, and it's going to help us shape for next season, including this one, mate. Last 13-14 games of the season, expected points per 90. Who's your red hot form players ahead of a brand new season?
So sorry about this was I couldn't be asked to put this into a table myself manually. So this is a screenshot from Fantasy Football Fix. So the logic around this one, right, Dave, viewers and listeners, is we think there's a bit of something to say that the final third of the season, right, that form can continue into the next season, right? We've seen it many times, right? Most infamously with Vardy and Mahrez, right, with Leicester, but we've seen it with Wood, we've seen it with Aina, right? Yeah, just this last season, right? So people who've had form, right, final third of preseason, it can continue into the next season, right? So I think this is a list that's interesting for people to consider, right? What I've done here is added a few filters to make it interesting. So it's game weeks 25 to 38 only. It's players with more than 500 minutes, right? So it's not just someone who's come on as a sub a couple of times. It's people who've had a few minutes, right? But then it's filtered by expected points per 90, right? So this takes into account or forgives players that have been injured, players that have just been getting into their teams and stuff like that. It gives a bit of a more thing. Hey, if these people you think they're going to be a surefire starter, then they could be good bets for next year, right? And it's filtered by expected FPL points according to Fantasy Football Fix. So I'll do the list, right? And then Dave, you can come react. So up front is Sessegnon, right, for Fulham. I won't offer an opinion on Sessegnon. I think that's a bit more of kind of a case specific, but yeah, he was playing as a winger. Let's see if that continues. Then it's João Pedro, then Salah, then Luis Diaz, then Asensio for Villa, then Saka, Eze, Isak, De Bruyne. See where he is. Sarr, Visser, and then Strand Larsen. Right. So give me a couple of names you love, a couple of names you hate for start of next season.
So start next season's a completely different answer because I hate Saka. Absolutely hate him, but not for the start of next season. It's because of how he finished this season. So we'll ignore that.
No,
Names I love.
He was doing good. He was doing good, mate, in terms of underlying stats per 90.
Yeah,
It was just because he wasn't getting minutes.
Delivering.
No, he wasn't
delivering
getting
them.
No, he wasn't getting minutes.
Yeah,
He's got 460 minutes. That's the key thing there, mate. His expected FPL points per 90 was near enough 7, which is exceptional. Which is why
but he only delivered 3.9.
So you can be biased, but these are the numbers, mate. These are the numbers. So that's why I'm trying to
underperform though, because he only delivered 3.9 against the 6.8 expected. But the names I love. Wisser.
Next season though. Get rid of the bias.
Get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Fixtures, ignore fixtures. Who do you hate for next season on this list?
I'll start with Hayes. Start with Hayes. So minute risks. Sessegnon, hate him.
Yeah.
Not going to pick him because I don't know whether he's going to start. So he's gone. I
Yeah.
probably won't start with Luis Diaz. Be interesting to see what Liverpool do in the summer, but he's not on set pieces. And he's going to be competing with Gakpo and let's see who else Liverpool bring in. So he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm not majorly keen on Asensio. He didn't get enough assured minutes for me even when Villa signed him. So he played, 650 minutes in 11 games? It's not enough.
Yeah.
So I'd get rid of him. And that's about it. The names I love, Strand Larsen, mate. 5.2 million at the end of the season, 6 points expected per 90 minutes. If he's like 6 million, he could be an absolute steal.
Agree.
So he's somebody I really like the look of.
Yeah.
Wisser, now we'll see again. If he stays at Brentford, maybe, but he might make a move. So if he does make a move, we'll see where he ends up. But again, expecting him to go in maybe at 7 million could be a really nice second striker option. Based on his whole season, not just the last third of it. I think he had a terrific season. I'm kind of just jinxing myself there, or not jinxing myself, but going against myself because this guy doesn't take set pieces. What would be really interesting is if Mbeumo does leave Brentford and Wisser stays, does he then become the penalty taker? If he does, he becomes even more of an attractive option. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there.
No, I agree. I was shaking my head there because Mbeumo going will be a big loss, right? Given he's such a good player.
Yeah, it will be. And unless he comes to Liverpool, I don't want him to leave. And then we're looking at Eze. He's absolutely killed both of his. I'll tell you what, it's interesting. There's no Bowen. And considering how he finished the season, I'm surprised he's not there.
Because he was getting lucky. That's the thing. This is expected FPL points per 90, right? So so this does bias towards people who haven't had many minutes, but also it does talk about the pure stats. So Salah's on this, but obviously didn't have a great end of season in terms of points, but his underlying stats were there. So this is the non-biased view, which I love seeing, right? And I hope people ignore this, right? I'll give you my view, right? Because I think there's a few players here. It's all fixture dependent, right? So we'll see what fixtures come out for the coming season, 25, 26. But I really like João Pedro. 8 expected FPL points per 90. That's big, right? Penalties. He's an annoying player, but when he plays, he does very well. And I think
he's so annoying.
Well, when he's fit, he plays because he's Brighton's best player, and I think Welbeck is on his way out. I think that the fitness isn't there with age. Salah won't talk about, Diaz won't talk about Asensio. Saka I really love, and I think he could be underpriced next year because of his lack of minutes. When he's played, he's done really well, and he's frustrated people like yourself. Those underlying stats are elite, 7 per 90, and he will play 90 when he's fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to be a set and forget. I can almost say if he's fit, he's going to be in my team for game week 1, regardless of fixtures. I reckon he'll be underpriced. Eze, we both love him. We'll see what he comes out as price. I think he'll be a reasonable price, right? Because of his points were up and down this year. But I think, I love Eze. Isak is not very nothing to really say there. Yeah, Strand Larsen. I like what you were saying about Strand Larsen and Visser, right? Yeah, I think Strand Larsen really stands out as like if Wolves have a nice fixture run, him and Eight Nori, definitely in my team because they're a team. Wolves. They've had the classic thing of first half of the season, different manager, really poor form. Second half of the season, much better kind of form, and some good players with some good underlying stats. Like I think they could have a very good start to next season, depending on fixtures. So yeah, like you, I agree with what you were saying. Strand Larsen, obviously, De Bruyne, don't take notice of him. Sessegnon, don't take notice. Louis Diaz, Asensio, don't take notice. I think if you're comparing Sarr and Eze, it's got to be. I think the difference in price is worth to go for an Eze. Not much statistically different, right? And that includes penalties, though. But
Eze's getting the points, so frustrates. But yeah, honestly, man, Strand Larsen, if he's 6 million or less, easy third striker.
I reckon,
on you.
I reckon all these options can form a base of a good squad. You know, honestly, like João Pedro, Strand Larsen, Isak as your forwards, your Salah, Saka, Eze. I know they're not defenders, right? Because they won't naturally appear on this. But that's like a good. If the fixtures land, that's a real good basis of a solid squad.
Yeah, and then see where you're filling in the rest. No, I like it. I like it a lot.
And they'll be underpriced. Some of these will be underpriced for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're now going to touch on heroes and villains, pal. I know this was like a nice little thing that you wanted to throw in, and I enjoyed this because it helped me review my season.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go first? Do you want to throw in? Do you want to go one each? How do we play it?
Yeah, let's do one each, and I think if you watch the previous episode again, there's a lot of crossover because it's our collective season reviews. Episode 81, we shared a good table towards the end from FPL Optimize that shows your net point scorers. Like what was the actual kind of like real net gain that you had from players, and like interestingly, a lot of these names appeared for us kind of collectively. So I think we're on the money in terms of what underlying stats we're seeing. But first one for me, mate. Table bonus assistant managers, right? When that chip was announced and we looked at it, we thought that table bonus is going to be big, and it was. It was just that table bonus was a big prize, and you were getting that prize whether you won or drew. That was big, and I think throughout the year there was times where there was teams that were where they were in the table wasn't a fair reflection of their true ability, right? So I made the most of that when I got near enough 50 points from Moyes, Emery, and then Glasner 3 weeks in a kind of row. And I think that's been a common trend whenever people played assistant managers. If they played the chip on the table bonus manager who had the best odds of a win or a draw, more often than not, they would have got the points. So yeah, I think shout out to that. And I think going ahead to this season, if they keep the assistant manager chip, and I think it was a nice addition, really adds an additional element of strategy. I think that's the way to play it. Just targeting those table bonus managers when there's like a team that's kind of like unfairly the table unfairly kind of reflects their ability, and there's doubles. I think that's the way to play it. I think you similarly, slightly different story, but you're number one probably hints at that too, right?
Hessler, man. Yeah, absolutely. The guy in game week 37, fresh in the mind, 19 points haul. Played Liverpool, but I saw Slot partying in Ibiza. I saw the Liverpool players partying in Dubai. Thought these guys don't care. They've won the league. Whereas Brighton have still got an outside chance of Europe. So I thought, let's take the gamble. Played it on Hersler. They beat Liverpool 3-2. 6 points for the win, 10 points for the bonus, and 3 points for the goal. So 19 points in total made me get a huge green arrow, a game week rank of 10,000, which is, I'm pretty sure, the best game week rank I've ever had since playing this game in 12 years. And it was primarily down to him. I got overall in terms of ownership around my rank. He gained me 99.8% of those points. So yeah, it was very much down to him. So he has to be my number one.
No, fair play, mate. I like it. I noticed we got two players the same, so we should probably come to those last. I think Cunha and Bruno. Yeah. But on to my number two, Semenyo. Semenyo. I only have one game week of the season. Game week 38, he got 16 points. was a big reason why I finished on Green Arrow at my best rank for the season, which was 84,000, which is a nice way to finish the season. I can't. Yeah, I had last game week of the season heroics last year with Eze again. He scored 16 points, so it was nice to repeat that. What I liked is that I admired Semenyo throughout the season. Right, he was you saw him on the tables earlier. He was like top 10 expected points, 190 points, but he was a bit of a troll. I know he underperformed his underlying stats a lot. I think he was a troll to you, Dave, for moments of the season, right? So to get one of these trolls just as they overperform was like particularly sweet. So just a bit of recency bias, but yeah, it's always nice to get a whole last game week of the season. So yeah, shout out to Semenyo.
Yeah, he frustrated me, but I get why you put him in because he, 16 points in the last game, big differential for you. Ian is my second, and this was based on I bought him in game week 1, held him for a good part of the season. And it was all looking at this 23-24 season. And since Nuno came into Forest in that season, Forest statistically had the 4th best defence in the league behind Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. So I'm like, they've got some nice fixtures to start off the season. I'm going to get a Forest defender in. So I bought in Aina, and he didn't let me down. He was 4.5 million to start off the season. He rose to 5.4 million, which just shows how good he was. And he got me on average per start. I gave him 4.43 points, which for a 4.5 million pound defender is a cracking return. So yeah, he really helped me set my base out in the first sort of 10 game week. So I have to call him out.
I remember the debate on which Forest defenders to go. I think you nailed Forest defender like the day of the deadline. I think you were debating it for a while, and then it was like at Fantasy Football Fest when you were trying to tap up the Forest fans.
Mark Southerns. Yeah, get Mark Southerns involved. Thank you, Mark. I know he's left Black Box now, but I was a big fan of that as a podcast, and he was there. I was like, "You're a Forest fan, Mark. Who do I get in?" I think I was umming and ahhing over Nico Williams, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he gave me the. I think you said it before Mark did. In all fairness to you, Matt, Ian is the man.
I said it with less authority, but yeah, it's good to know whose opinion you respect. But yeah, Aina was a great pick, and I think it wasn't a lucky one. You went through all the logic to get it. 3, let's talk about our Brentford boys, right? So Mbeumo I've owned for pretty much, I think 34, 35 weeks of the season. I think, I just want to celebrate him as a great player and a great season. A 200-point season as a Brentford player is pretty amazing. Whenever I captained him, he returned. He was just reliable throughout the year. The weeks I didn't own him, he did get a few double game week. He did get a few double-digit hauls. Sorry, I think you mentioned one where you brought him in, got 18 points. He could have been on my bench boost when I did that, but I decided to get in some crappy player from Man City instead. But throughout the season, he's just been kind of a real consistent differential, and it's a great player, full stop. So yeah, he's done well for me.
Absolutely, and to back that up, my 4th pick, I didn't do mine in any particular order, by the way, but Wissa on my list, primarily for me, game week 9 to game week 15, he got me 7 points per game, which was a phenomenal return for the price of him. Helped me get a rank, go from 1 million to 57k during that time. So really big shout out to him. But he also, over the whole season, we saw at the end there, he was top for expected points. He got 24 attacking returns, which 20 is ridiculous. But when you take into context, the guy has no set piece takes at all. Doesn't take corners, doesn't take free kicks, doesn't take pens, but got 24 attacking returns, including 18 goals. Phenomenal return, and I had him for large parts of the season. And yeah, he was a big help in my overall rank. So big shout out to Wissa if you're listening.
Yeah, he's been a long-term fan, but I think you have inspired him at times. But yeah, like great, like you say, great player, and like all the more impressive given that there's no set pieces. Let's do Cunha next. Do you want to do Cunha, mate? And I'll probably say same, and then I'll do Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, and then I'll say same. No, I think my Bruno might be slightly different to you. There's a reason I'm pulling Bruno in, but Cunha, mate, again over the season, he's massively overperformed his stats. Right, let's call that out. He's been a massive overperformer, but I had him for 10 game weeks earlier in the season, game week 10 to 19. Similar to the Wissa story for me, mate. He got me randomly as well an average of 7 points per game during that period. And he was a real differential for me. So he helped me get that 1 million rank to 57k. But when he was playing the whole season, when he wasn't getting himself banned, the guy had phenomenal returns. And I'm sorry to see him go to Man United because I just don't see him fitting the Man United mold, if I'm honest. And I think and I don't like Man United as another reason, right? But I just don't think he'll score the same amount of points and he won't get the same amount of freedom.
It's
But he's had a phenomenal season, and for me, yeah, that 10-week period specifically, where it was a fair differential and he got me 7 points per game on average, he's there for me.
no. Agree. I'll add a bit more context. So, like, obviously, we brought him in for the free hit as well when we both didn't have him. I think he scored
Right.
18 points on
Yeah.
the free hit. So, like, yeah, always reliable. And yeah, it's the same period I owned him, right? Where when a player gets lucky, you've got to just appreciate and love it, right? Like we pick enough players who are unlucky. But I had him for that game week 10 to 19 period as well.
Yeah.
I noted that game week 11 to 18, he had 9 attacking returns through that period. And this was when Wolves were doing bad, and he was getting super lucky versus underlying stats from that period. And that he was the person who helped me cling on to ranks. So this was the period when I was like really struggling to make ground. So it was really important that I had him. So yeah, through a tough period, he was the one that was kind of keeping my team afloat. So yeah, kind of really good season, and agree with what you said. And yeah, the Manchester United move, bit of a weird one because I don't know what position he would play, right?
Yeah.
The closest player is Bruno Fernandes, and Bruno Fernandes is better than him. So
Yeah.
your best player, you're not going to play them as a 10, or you can sell them to a Saudi team. Bruno's not, Cunha's not a forward, he's not a winger. Strange move.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's been their transfer policy for 10 years, right? It's just random strange players.
Anthony, Sancho. Yeah. No, enough said. But Bruno, you start with Bruno.
Yes. I'm a big fan of Bruno. He's probably my favorite player in the Premier League, really. So I think
Shocking.
he's been wasted. He's been wasted at Manchester United. I think he's a top 5 Premier League player easy. Being wasted. But yeah, I like him as a player. But like, yeah, in previous seasons, he's been a bit of a troll for me. That I've had him in good times, but also he's screwed up a few of my seasons. I didn't get a top 1K finish because of him one season. I transferred him in and out in previous seasons when I had my worst rank ever. And like, I think that sort of net loss of 50k to like ranks single-handedly. But yeah, this season he's done me well. So I think
on him, I'll tell you who you rarely hate. You hate his girlfriends for posting pictures on Instagram.
Yeah, that was last season when Bruno's partner posted a picture of him with a crutch and like what do you have, like a cast on his foot, and then he was like, Bruno Fernandes never misses any minutes, right? And like I think he had the most consecutive minutes in the whole of Europe at one time, and then he was posting a picture of crutches and a cast, and then he was playing on the Saturday. That was the Tuesday, and he was playing on the Saturday. I think I transferred him out for a hit, and then he did like a 20-point haul and then went insane. But this season, I've caught him at good times. I've held him when he's not performed, but like particular things that mattered for me was there was a period like game week 25 to game week 29. He went on a massive monster haul, like when no one owned him, right? So I saw 46 points in 4 game weeks, right? Throughout the season, he's been quite reliable against promoted teams. So he scored 17 points twice against Leicester. So I like if you're picking a player, a premium player against or semi-premium player in Bruno's case against weak teams and they deliver, that's nice. You've got that certainty. So yeah, he's come through at good times and pretty consistently has had low ownership when I've had him. So yeah, he's done well for me. I'm surprised that he's on your list, given that you've transferred him out at the best times of the season. But
I sold him at 25 to 29, but that is through my own inept ability to play this game and not Bruno Fernandes's fault, right? So the reason he's in mine is purely for one game week 11. I sold James Maddison for him. James Maddison got 2 points in that game week. Bruno Fernandes comes in at home to Leicester, 17 points, and had my captain's armband. So it was a massive haul for me. He was a major differential. Ended up getting a game week rank of 79k, which is in the top 3 game weeks of the season. So purely for the memories, I was in Turkey when that happened. So purely for the memories of the holiday and the fact that he absolutely caned it for that one game week, it's a very memorable moment of the season.
I remember the discussion.
He's made the list.
Captaincy as well. That was brave and bold, but yeah, fair play. No, I get it. But he could be on your villains as well. Like we've done here, is going to do villains. Is Fernandez on your villains as well? Let's see.
No, he's not. Very biased towards players I feel hard done by on my villains list. I mean, I might as well start. I'd start with Saka. And as much as Saka was really good early stage and he had decent underlying numbers, you know what it was, mate? I was scared to sell him. And again, that's on me more than it is Saka. But game week 30 to 38, there was just things like, he was scoring in Europe. To begin with, Arsenal still had a chance in the Premier League, so you thought, okay, he's gonna get a start until it's mathematically done, and he didn't. And in that game week 30 to 38 piece, he got 20 points and 1 return. Like, given his price and the quality of the player, that is dreadful returns. But he took up a lot of my budget and didn't give me anything back for it. So yeah, partly on me for not getting rid through me being scared, but for a player of his quality, mate, he should be delivering more than 1 attack and return in the last 9 game weeks of the season.
Yeah. No, understood. Should we mix it up and you just go through the rest of your list?
Yeah. So Sarr in seconds. And this is one purely because I feel hard done by. Sarr would potentially be my top villain of the season, right?
Really?
When we got him, yeah, honestly, the guy, Palace had a great run of fixtures from game week 18. We had a whole episode on who do you pick in the midfield for these really good up-running fixtures. And it wasn't even close. In terms of expected goal involvement in the 6 game weeks running up to that, Sarr was head and shoulders above Eze, head and shoulders above Mateta. He was like, as I say, wasn't even kind of close.
Yeah.
In the 9 game weeks that followed, when those fixtures happened, he got an assist and nothing else. 1 return. I then sold him in game week 27 because I was fed up of it. And he scored twice. And then he followed it up in game week 28 with another goal. And he drove me insane between game week 18 and 28. Hated it. But I mean, on the stats, on the fixtures, did nothing. And then as soon as I sold him, bang, 3 goals in 2 game weeks. So for that reason, I hate him.
He did all right of the season for a 5.5 million midfielder, though.
Yeah, but not when I had him. Although he did, even later in the season, he didn't do me that well. But that period, he infuriated me. So for that reason, I got rid of him. Quite a lot of this, mate, is my bad play. Haaland's on the list for that reason. He's in 3rd. 8 games. From game week 7 onwards, he was scoring less than 3 points a game. And again, he cost us massively in the battle between who went with Haaland, who went with Salah on the wild card.
Yeah.
I probably held him for too long. I had him for 8 games when he was doing absolutely nothing. And that's on me. I should have sold him. But for the most expensive player that there's ever been in the game, that's poor returns. So I think he cost me
that
quite
resonates. I had him for the same period, and it killed me as well. That kind of captain and Haaland for like 6-7 game weeks when they were better fixtures and probably as good at underlying stats as Salah, but that kind of point differential was kind of like mad, wasn't it? Like game week 6.
It was ridiculous. For that reason, he cost me big on the rank. I think you're going to find number 4 interesting because your hero, Semenyo, finds his way onto my villain list.
I'm surprised it's not Dango for you, but like they both screwed you over in different ways.
I didn't have Dango for long enough. I had Dango in my team, and then I put him on the bench. He only played for me for maybe 3 game weeks. Semenyo was in my squad for 15 game weeks between game week 6 and game week 20.
Wow,
right?
The only periods he didn't do well.
Honestly. So he was in there. I played him 11 times. I did bench him a couple, but Bournemouth had really good fixtures. And in those 11 games, he got 36 points, so just over 3 points a game. And when you look at his underlying stats, he should have done a lot better. And then sold him in game week 21 because I got fed up of it, and he scored twice away at Chelsea. So as soon as I sell him when the fixtures turn, bang! Here comes. It's a very similar story to Sarr.
I think do you know the difference between our transfer gains, our immediate transfer gains? So again, previous episode we did a stat that said like, yeah, in week transfer gains, I think there's a 60, 70 point gap between us. I think a lot of it's because of you did those two moves.
Sold at the wrong time, right? Sell Semenyo, bang, see you later.
Yeah.
There's 12 points. Thanks for selling me. And then last but not least, again, Sarr and Semenyo, very similar story. Haaland and Palmer, very similar story.
Armour did very good
Game
for
week
you.
20. He did. He did. Like,
Yeah.
first half of the season, so it's recent bias, right? First half
Yeah.
of the season, the guy was great. Got some really nice captain points from him. Game week 22 to 29, however, which was my worst part of the season. My overall rank doubled during that part of the season. This guy got 18 points. Absolute waste of a budget. Absolute waste of a position. And I couldn't do anything else because I had 11 million tied up in the guy. It restricted me. But again, similar to the Haaland story, afraid to sell him. Probably similar to the Saka story. I got blinded by the price tag, mate, of all three of them. So a lot of that's
Yeah.
on me. But for the player, the caliber of Saka, Haaland, and Palmer, they should have been doing better, and it cost me overall rank. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I'm at. That's where I'm
I
at,
kind of wish
pal.
I had Palmer as well because, like, I think there was a few big game weeks I went for Palmer versus the crowd, right? And like, there was one where Salah, of course, returned, right? You went. Do you remember this game week? It was when Palmer was playing Southampton at home.
Yeah,
His underlying expected goal involvement was like 2, and he got no
yeah,
point. And Salah got his breakaway penalty or something like that, or breakaway penalty and assist after like 80 minutes. I was like, oh, that's infuriating. And then more recently, not a big swing, but it was like, was it game week 36 or 37? Palmer was home to Man United. Watkins was another Pylian thing. Yeah, Palmer just blanked, of course. So I reckon he should be on my list. I think I kind of feel what you're saying, but I think you got some captaincy returns from him. I had a few captaincy like
yeah. A couple of blanks for you, especially
shambles.
37 was the one. Luckily for you, when Bumo and Salah didn't explode that game week.
Yeah, spot on. So yeah, I think on yours, I'm feeling Saka could have been on mine. Like I think whenever I owned him, didn't own him, he did well. Similar story. Saar, yeah, agree. Haaland, agree. Palmer, agree. Yeah. So yeah, I kept it to 5, but I could have had a long moan. So I agree with yours. So my one is this is more about plays that I could have had options and stuff like that, and I have regrets, right? So this was probably one I was most annoyed at because it was like I think quite an obvious option is I needed a cheap defender game week 16, right? I sampled it down to 2, Cole for Chelsea or Lewis Hall for Newcastle, right? Next 4 game weeks, and like if I stretched it further, there'd be a bigger gap, right? It's not a huge gap, but all these matter, especially because Chelsea had good fixtures, Newcastle had good fixtures, but Lewis Hall actually attacks. Four game weeks, Dion Cole 12 points, neither here nor there. Yeah, Hall had 40 points in those 4 game weeks, and then if I stretch out to 6, 7 game weeks, the gap grows, right? So
Yeah,
that was just a stupid 50-50 way. You should go for the attacking defender, right? When they have good fixtures over someone who just needs clean sheets, right? So stupid decision by me, like 4 game weeks net change of 28. That's big, right? Wood frustrated me, right? So over the season, he overperformed by 20 points, right? Good underlying stats. But for the first half of the season, that middle stretch as well, it felt like every shot he would take would just go in. And it was like so frustrating because
yeah,
underlying, he's not a good player, right? He's not suddenly become the best finisher in the world, which some people were implying. And I'm so glad towards the end of the season he didn't continue to overperform. But like, yeah, it was frustrating not owning him at all. So he was killing me throughout the year, particularly at middle stint. And really, he should have been my team game week 1, right? I selected Muniz as my cheap striker. I had the choice of him or Woods. All the models and all the data suggested a Woods, but I didn't want to double up on a Forest attacker because I had Gibbs White in my midfield.
that's
So
right.
I could have had
Yeah,
Wood, right? Like so easy, and like it was a bit of a dumb decision not to have him. But yeah, him just like outperforming every single week up until the last quarter was annoying. Right, it was annoying to witness. Right.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely get it. He's yeah, he killed us both, mate.
Yeah.
Large part of
Salah,
it.
despite him having a record-breaking season, you got to be selfish. What has he added to me? Net, not a lot, right? You hinted a bit of it with Haaland, so I think what you said of Haaland applies for Salah. Game week 6 to game week 13, Salah scored 71 points, right? I went without him on the wild cards, didn't bring him out until game week 14. 71 points during that short period. High captaincy ownership, whereas Haaland didn't really do anything for that period. Yeah, he killed me then. And then the other time he killed me was triple captaincy with his 29-point haul, right? I went for Isak for 11 points triple captain. Salah didn't deserve 29 points for that triple captaincy. Like, I think his underlying stats were saying like 1.5 returns. He got 29 points. So it's like, nah. So yeah, Salah's cost me a few points. And all the more frustrating was when he killed me, it was like great underlying performance, but he really did outperform his underlying stats as well. He did get quite fortunate. Fourth, and this is like recency bias, but it's a really stupid decision, right, by me, is that I wildcarded game week 30. I wanted to load up on Palace players because they had two come in. That was really obvious. Having a defender or keeper made a lot of sense. I went Muniel's great. Some people went Henderson, great. Going for two attackers made a lot of sense. Saar, because of price point flexibility, made a lot of sense. Yeah. Then Eze's there, like Palace's best player for years and years and years and years and years on set pieces, penalties. And then there's Mateta, who's just come back from a really weird head injury, minutes risk, and costs loads. I went with Mateta for 25 points. Game week 30 to 37 when I owned the players or would own the players. Mateta scored 25, Eze 59. Right?
So there's that many.
So
Jeez. Well,
a massive swing. And this is the difference between my rank and a top. I would be in 45k if I had those points, right? So he killed me. And again, part of it was because he was overperforming during that period. But that was a bit of a dumb decision there. Like, if I followed Fantasy Football Fix algorithm, if I followed the FPL review algorithm, they would have said pick Eze, pick Eze, pick Eze. And like, I thought better, but and part of the reason this leads to my fifth villain, which again is linked to a stupid decision. I couldn't really fit in Eze because I wanted like to fit in this weird structure where game week 30 wildcard, I just try to have as many double game weeks as possible. And the structure I landed on had Savinho as my third Man City player, right? So this, I think, net cost me about 30, 40 points when I look at the wider ramifications. So Savinho, that was just dumb, right? Because rotation risk. He plays the right wing for City. There's like 4 or 5 players that can viably play that. I brought him in first game. We got 9 points. After that, nothing. Benched, or like 1 or 2 point kind of returns. Right? Stupid decision. Bringing Savinho blocked me from Eze as an option. Bringing Savinho blocked me from Ruben Diaz, who scored near enough 50 points during that stretch. You benefited from some of that. And all these were better and more sensible moves going in. Bringing in Savinho meant that I think I directly took out Bowen for Savinho. Right, I could have had Bowen and Bowen was the single top kind of point scorer for that final stretch. So yeah, that's on me. But Savinho, that decision to make him had such a kind of ramification and knock-on effect where I would have had all these other better players across my squad. I would have had Evan Nielsen as a striker, not Mateta. I would have had Eze in my midfield. I would have had one of Bowen and Bumo as a constant in my midfield as well. So yeah, maybe that villain is me making a bad decision, obsessing around weird structures for maximizing double game week players. But yeah, Savinho, he was shocking. But like, there was lots of other players that were killing me. That it was a direct result of getting that player and that idiotic move that caused it. But yeah, that's my villains, mate.
what I like about this, we've both looked at this differently. I've gone for the players that have frustrated me because when I've had them, they haven't scored me points. And you've looked at it as the ones that have killed your rank. So it's nice to get the two different approaches.
I Barcelona, I back my boys, right? They're trying their hardest, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I'm an Amaron. I'll just slag off my players, no problem. It's like this is the worst team we've ever had. Quite happy to do it. You're a bit more pragmatic with it. But yeah, looking on what have we learned? So we put this together to be the big drawn out things that we wanted to take into next season. I've come up first. The main ones for me, mate, drown out the noise, and I kind of touched on it a little bit when we were looking through our villains there. And this is easier said than done, right? But I got scared into selling certain players. The big one recently was Saka. I was chatting to you, and I was like, Saka to Bowen makes sense to me. West Ham have fixtures. Okay, Arsenal have some fixtures, but they've got Liverpool, they've got Newcastle coming up. And then I went away and I started thinking about it, and I just panicked because I saw Saka's price. I thought if this guy hammers it, I'm gonna regret it. So it didn't make the transfer. And then obviously Saka got one return in 8 game weeks on Bowen. And look, there's hindsight in that. But it's not like Bowen didn't have the fixtures and Bowen didn't have the form. So I think there's a lot of times where I'll talk myself out of things because I look at Twitter or I look at something and a model might be like, oh no, you really should keep Saka. That's just an example, right? It's probably a poor example. But I think if you can drown out the noise and go with your instinct.
Honestly, I don't think there was a period when you went for Saka where Bowen would have been a more viable option. Maybe if you waited until a minute. Maybe if you waited
3 game weeks, maybe.
Well, I mean, like,
it's probably a bad example. It's just one example.
No, I get it. And the noise for you is what, like X?
Yeah, stuff like that. Exactly that. X or dare I say models. Not you. So you help models. But number two is a killer because I messed up my assistant manager chip this season because of number 2. Don't wait for double game weeks. That might not happen or haven't been scheduled. Absolutely wasted my assistant manager. Managed to play it in game weeks 36, 37, 38. So I only got 3 games out of it, whereas people that played it a lot more sensibly than me got a minimum of 4. Some people got, like you, got 5 game weeks out the assistant manager chip. So you're just in a much better position to benefit from it. And if I'd have played it, optimal for me would have been Salah 24 for triple captain and then play the assistant manager 25, 26, 27. I'd have got 29 points more. But I waited for a Newcastle double or a Palace double. It was all based on FA Cup, and it just didn't work out because when that double ended up falling in, it would have stopped me being able to play my free hit when I wanted and my bench boost when I wanted. So yeah, it messed me up.
I agree. I think you use the chips on doubles as and when they come ASAP, and like more generally, that was obviously an exaggerated example, right? But like it can kind of like come into our thinking when we're planning with players. I think when you got 5 free transfers now, you can manage and navigate any double that may come in. Just wait for it to be confirmed. Like those people who predict double game weeks are really, 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 really bad every season at predicting them. Until it's a moment that you can predict it yourself, right? They're false. They're a false prophet. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like it's mad. I'd say like, yeah, I agree with that. I think wait for them to come up. You can roll transfers to give you flexibility with the 5 free transfers, and when you've got some that are certain and booked in, that's when you play it. Don't wait for stuff that may or may not happen. It's the same about triple captains and stuff. Who knows who gets injured down the line?
Yeah. Exactly that. I will not be making that mistake next season.
Yeah.
But number 3, a bit more positivity because I've been quite negative on this one. I'm constantly reviewing the bad play that I had, but don't give up hope. I went through a three game week period where I had some really good results, and I went from 305k to 99k. So I think it's important you never think, well, what's the point, and just like my brother, I don't know whether he's listening. If you are, hello, Steve. But he gives up on FPL in like game week 9 if he's not doing as well as he wants to do, or he's made some decisions that haven't gone his way. He just stops playing because he thinks, what's the point? I think there's always a point. I think if you can get to game week 30 and be in rank 3 million and still battle your way with some really good results into a respectable finish. So yeah, a bit of positivity there, pal. Don't give up. Don't think it's over.
I agree. I agree, right? So I had a worse start than you, right? I finished 84k, which isn't where I wanted to be. But even coming up to game week 30, game week 32, I reckon I could have finished top 10 with like very small decisions, not radically different, and lots of what ifs, things that I was considering. I could have finished top 10.
And Bowen, as that would have took you right
As
down to
a
50k, right?
Eze and Bowen, and I would have finished 10k.
Yeah.
Near
So
enough.
I think it's never too late. Don't give up.
No, I agree.
And then number 4, don't make life difficult for yourself with great bench options, right? So I know we kind of might differ on this one, okay, but the way I played the game this season is very different to how I did the last few. So from wild card 1 in game week 6, I gave myself a strong bench, right? So all 15 players were decent. I started off with like Winks, right? So easy bench every week. You come on for 2 points. But from game week 6, I had a really solid 15 players. What that meant, mate, was over the 38 game week season, I left at least one return, and in many weeks, more than one return on my bench in 26 of the 38 game weeks. That's 68% of them. A total points on my bench this season of 396. Now, to put that into context, you only left 244 on yours. So I left 152 points more on my bench than you did over the season. So yeah, I just think I just went into every game week with do I play Rodgers or do I play Sarr? That sort of headache. And quite regularly, clearly got it wrong. Now, again, this might be based on my play, but I'm just putting myself. Why give myself the headache?
I actually disagree on this one. And I think it's important for us to disagree sometimes. Rather than just patting ourselves on the back. So, like, I think the caveat would be, as long as your bench points aren't coming and bench players are coming at the caveat of your starting 11, right? So if you were like holding back on a great starting 11 because you want an expensive bench, then that's a question. But if you're comfortable with your starting 11 in your squad, like, I think having a good bench is important, and now is even more important than before, right? The reason being, you can roll 5 free transfers, right? So having the flexibility of a bench that you can comfortably play means you don't have to use unnecessary transfers, right? Whereas before, there would be more of a reason before it, because like you could, after 2 free transfers, you burn it, right? So that means that a squad is more important this year moving forward, right? If we still have 5 free transfers. And like the second thing is, I think as long as you're backing yourself with the decision, like the rest is randomness, right? I think most weeks, if you looked at expected points, bookies odds, that sort of stuff, you probably had a relatively obvious pick. There'd probably be a gap between your Sarr and your Rodgers. And if you've done that,
maybe
then you can just be comfortable with yourself. So I reckon it's a strong bench now. It was never of this opinion before, but I think a strong bench now is like a good thing, and bench points, it's neither here nor there.
Well, maybe it shows that I'm just really good at picking a squad, but I'm just really bad at picking the players to start. Because 68% of the game weeks I had the returns on my bench. Killer.
Some of that, our game week 1 squads, you had a fantastic fantastic defense, right? You had Aina, Pedro Porro, Trent, Conser, and Robinson, right?
Robinson. That was it. Robinson.
Right.
Yeah.
I had Barco and Quansah, right? You would have benched some clean sheets. I would have preferred to have your squad than mine.
Granted, with that example, absolutely.
I know it's again exaggerated, but I reckon it's okay. I'm surprised your lesson isn't here as well. Yeah, tongue in cheek. What about
Fernandez?
Extra patience.
Yeah, that should be on the. That should be on the. That's don't sell players.
Yeah, if they have okay underlying stats and then some exceptional fixtures coming up, and then set pieces, it's like, why? Yeah,
Chase.
Pedro and Fernandez were the examples, weren't they? Where it's like you got them out just before they went on a run, but they were penalty takers. They were on 90 minutes during those times, and they did have nice fixture runs. So
yeah, that should be there. But I didn't want to bring it up because it hurts too much again. Because that was a 10k in the bag if I hadn't made those decisions. But yeah, here we go. Here's a few for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of these are stating the obvious. I won't kind of like lean on it too much. But yeah, these are my personal things, right? So obviously discretion. Yeah, apply your own discretion with them. But I think assistant manager. I really like the chip, and we've mentioned this before over these last 2 episodes. But I think picking the right table bonus assistant managers was a powerful tactic, right? Just because of the high bonus that you get for kind of winning and drawing, right? And I think if you played the bookies odds, the highest expected points in any given game week for assistant manager was the best table bonus manager, right? Obviously, you didn't have as good experience, but Andrew wasn't the best assistant manager. Like statistically, it would have been Pereira, right? If you're looking at bookies odds. So yeah, I think if assistant manager continues, and I kind of want it to continue, I think it's an interesting chip that adds a bit more flair to kind of stuff. Yeah, like I think keep using table bonus as an approach in double game weeks. For me, number 2, minutes remain king. Right? They're like picking players who are going to get near enough 90 minutes, and you just know are going to start is so important. When I've ever diverted from this, I've been killed. I mentioned game week 1, Quansah and Barco. Right? He was the Brighton fullback who went to Sevilla, right, for a season-long loan. Savino on my game week 30 wild card, and then in between when I haven't gone for minutes, kind of like minutes risks, it's kind of killed me. When I've gone for minute certainty over other players, like keeping Bruno Fernandes, it's worked for me. Even game week 38, I went Semenyo over Kluivert because I knew he was going to play 90 minutes, and his 2 attacking returns were 75 minutes plus. A lot of goals and activity happen during that period, right? That's why Salah is such a good pick, right? So minutes, I think, is so important. I'm always going to go for that. I think moving forward, and I say it every season, I get tempted. Next year, I'll try and be even more disciplined with minutes. Don't make early transfers. I believe information is worth more than price changes. I don't think I made any early transfers this year that I got stung for, but I think others did, right? So I think, again, wait until the last minute to make a transfer. Price changes are neither here nor there. If you pick a good squad, you should have a decent you should see price rises, and there's always another player, right? Like Saliba versus Kiwior is a net difference of like 1.5 million in price points. Right, Kiwior, when he's been fit, has outscored Saliba. There's always cheap options that emerge, right? So don't make early transfers to chase those price rises, right? I really don't think it's important at all. There's always ways in that squad to kind of find money if you need to be, or find cheaper options as alternatives, and sometimes they come through, right? Cheaper keeper, 4.5 keeper versus a 5.5 keeper, 4.5 attacking defender versus a 6 mil defender. There's loads of options that you can kind of make up stuff, right? Attacking defenders are better picks than those that rely on clean sheets alone. So this is something we hinted at this episode when we looked at those top scoring defenders at different points during the season, also at an aggregate level, likes of Munoz, Aït-Nouri really standing out, Lewis Hall at times, right? I've made mistakes this year where I've been going, and this year's probably been a bit of an outlier where like there hasn't been any standout defenses, right? So there's not been any teams that have been real certain of clean sheets. But yeah, I want to have multiple options to get points, right? I want to get like assists, goals, and clean sheets. I don't want to rely on getting 6 points ceiling and trying to grind out a clean sheet, and then you just concede a goal last minute to Southampton. Right? Yeah. Sick of that. So yeah, wherever possible, like I think attacking defenders, I think are better than those that can rely on clean sheets. Like again, fixture dependent and everything else that's happening, but like generally speaking, I'd go for an attacking defender from a worse team versus like someone who's just going to get a clean sheet. Right? Set piece takers, particularly penalties, pick them. That's a good tactic. Obvious, right? Nothing really to dwell there. We looked at all the top scorers; they're all penalty takers near enough. So you just kind of like make the most of that. I think on this one, be even more. Don't I'll add to this. Don't take hits as well. But I think you now with the ability to roll 5 free transfers, only make transfers when it's an absolute necessity and obvious, and don't take hits. Right. I think with planning and a good squad, like transfers are a super a luxury to kind of have, and like bans will come up, injuries will come up. There'll be huge fixture swings that you can kind of then make the most of your moves. Moving players here and there, and messing around with keeper transfers and stuff like that, messing around with moving out good penalty takers from teams with good fixtures. I don't want to take the risk, and I think honestly, I think I've been really bad this year at wild cards. My game week 1 team, my game week 6 team, my game week 30 team. My transfers in between those have been really good. As you saw, like my net, what was it? My net in week transfer kind of like value was like
good.
plus 230 points, right? Which isn't bad. And like I think if I was playing a season without chips, I think I would have done quite well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll continue doing that, like that cautious, sensible approach, right? I think rolling is a really nice thing to do quite a lot at the moment. Target double game weeks, but not at the expense of great players with great form and fixtures, right? So double game weeks are super powerful still. I think this year has proved that. Can anyone remember Everton, right? When it was like Beto, Decore, Pickford just going insane, right? So that's because it was a double game week. But I think that you should target them at the expense of great players with great form and fixtures, right? So I think it's finding that balance. Game week 30 onwards, I did really go too hard on Villa, Palace, Man City, who didn't have great double game weeks, and then their players were questionable, right? If there was nailed on players from these teams that were great form, go for it. Bringing someone like Savinho was just stupid, right? At the expense of someone like Bowen or Mbumo, right? So I think it's like look at the fixtures in and around those doubles as well. Yeah, I think
you're right.
0.8 is
You're
similar to
right
what you
with that.
said.
Yeah, just on that one, like I bought Mbumo in. I'm just checking it now. I bought Mbumo in game week 33, right?
Yeah,
And in game week 33, City, Villa, Arsenal, and Palace played twice. And Mbumo got 18 points. Single game week. But he was playing, the guys have been on form all season. He was at home to Brighton, who have got a shocking defence. So yeah, I don't do that enough. But the one
and
time I did it this season, it paid out.
And it was because there was no real other viable options. There was Rodgers and no one else because Arsenal had no midfielders. City had no midfielders to pick for. So it's like play it sensible, but like don't force it if there's no players and the doubles were rubbish themselves as well, right? So it was like that was bad play for me. 0.8, mate. Overall top ranks are achievable with solid play, even if you're miles off the end of the season. Kind of similar to what you said, keep hope, right? I think for you particularly, top 10k should have been quite easily achievable based on you at 50k rank at 19. I think I could have got there with it's all decisions, of course. That's the nature of the game, but not radically different decisions. Slightly different options on the 30 wild card. I think I would be very close to that, right? So I think, and that's even when you're miles off, like with only a couple of game weeks towards the end of the season. So I think you've got to play well. But if you play well, minimize your mistakes. I think it should be achievable. And then again, number 9, quite an obvious one. Targeting the promoted teams and the worst ones there. It's a solid tactic, right? We spoke about Leicester and Bruno Fernandes, but yeah, Southampton, like Ipswich, it was like quite a surefire thing for good results, was targeting those teams, particularly from a attacking point of view. So yeah, those are my lessons, mate.
Good tips.
We'll
So
see if I remember them.
Well, yeah, but basically captain anybody that's playing Leeds, Sunderland, or Burnley next season. That's what we're gunning for.
Well, I think Burnley and Leeds are a bit better than the teams that got promoted this year.
Sunderland, then. Sunderland are the Whipham boys. That's what we're. I probably wouldn't disagree, by the way.
For sure.
Yeah. But then, just to finish up before we look at the FPL Apprentice MiniLeague update, it's looking ahead at some insight into maybe what we could learn from the back end of this season into game week, into season 25-26 next season. So a couple of things I've spotted, mate, and then we'll touch on what you've spotted. And I'm a big fan, as you know, with my Nottingham Forest piece. Did I mention that I picked Dana in game week 1? because if I haven't, I'll mention it again. And I've done similar. I've done similar with the defenses for this season. And Everton in the last 10 game weeks had the second best defense for expected goals.
Wow.
And that was despite, can I just point out, right? They played in that time Liverpool, Premier League winners, Arsenal, Champions League, Forest, qualified for Europe, City, Champions League, Chelsea, Champions League, Newcastle, Champions League qualifiers. They played
Wow.
all 6 of them in the last 10 game weeks and still had the second best defense.
That's
Moyes are
impressive.
doing wonders,
Wow.
absolute wonders with that defense. So I wouldn't be going anywhere near their attackers, but if their fixture starts off even half decent, I'm getting at least Pickford in and potentially an Everton defender. They are my Forest of last season, so that's where I'm looking definitely as a goer. Villa also up there. They were actually top during those last 10 game weeks, and again they didn't have the best fixtures, but they got 6 clean sheets, which was really impressive. The downside to Villa, mate, I suppose it's a little bit with Everton as well. The problem with both of them is they don't really have any attacking defenders. So you kind of sat waiting for the clean sheets, which is why I might just go for one or the other.
Mykolenko.
That's maybe Mykolenko. The troll. I'm not bringing the troll in. Yeah, that ain't happening. And then, but it depends. Let's see who they buy in the summer, so on and so forth. But defensively, they've been solid. Really impressed with Everton. Leighton Baines, David Unsworth, the penalty taker.
Seamus Coleman, yeah.
He's still there. Ashley Young, about 57 years old. And then Bournemouth was 6th. Downside to Bournemouth, they're losing Huijsen to Real Madrid, and Kerkez could be on his way to Liverpool. So I think that could make a major impact on their defence. So I'd probably just sit and wait on them to see how they start the season before I bring in any of their defenders, because two mainstays of this season are potentially on their way out. Huijsen's already been obviously signed by Madrid, so that's definitely done.
I agree. I think Bournemouth's more the attackers to keep an eye on, to be honest. But yeah, the Villa and Everton stats you mentioned is pretty stark and interesting. For sure. And I think I think players will be, because of how their seasons have gone, I think they should be quite accessible, right? I think Pickford, unfortunately, will be 5 million, if not more. But we'll see what happens with Martinez. They might have a different keeper, but players like Konsa, players like Mykolenko should be, I see 5 million or 4.5 million. They should be quite accessible. So yeah, that's quite stark stuff you were saying there.
Honestly, Everton one, mate. They played 6 of the last set of the top 7 in those last game weeks.
No, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Yeah,
still second best defense. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's screaming out. It was a good investment.
Yeah. Attacker wise, I'm looking at Newcastle. I don't think it's a surprise that, based on the fact that they had more games firstly, but they also won 2 games 5-0. They were top for expected goals over the last 10 game weeks. They've got an absolute wealth of attacking options. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in the summer. If they don't buy a right winger, so if they don't get an Mbeumo in or somebody along those sort of lines, Jacob Murphy was 5.5 million this season. I expect his price to go up. Let's see what it goes up to. But the guy got an attacking return every 112 minutes. If he sat at 6.5 million or less, that seems like an absolute steal. Very easy 4th choice midfielder. So I'll potentially be looking at him, but we'll see what his price is. And Forest, mate, I put strong avoid, right? Chris Wood might have had a stellar season. Alanga's popped in. Gibbs White's popped in. In the last 10 game weeks, they were fighting for Europe. They had to win games. They had to get points on the board. Despite that, and 6 of their games, in the FPL difficulty rank, 6 of their last 10 games ranked at 2, by the way. So they weren't the most difficult fixtures in the world. Only the 3 relegated team had worst expected goal data. They absolutely fell off a cliff as an attacking force.
I think their whole team is a strong avoid. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the battle for relegation next year.
And that's it. They've got Europe to contend with, which they haven't had to do for a long time, right? So we'll see how the squad deals with that. But I would not be going into next season with Chris Wood in the squad. It just doesn't feel, based on how they finished this season, like a sensible move.
Agree.
There you go. On to yourself.
Yeah. So fixture dependent, of course. I'm not unless pick whoever's got good fixtures, like, and there'll be a few staples. But yeah, I like Wolves. We spoke about a few of their players, but like, yeah, since under Pereira, they've been a solid upper mid table side, I would say, without looking at any underlying stats there. But yeah, I think they've been doing well. And we've seen in the stats tables 2 players that have been doing very well in terms of actual performance, but underlying performance, particularly the last quarter. Strand Larsen, Aiden Noy, they'd be straight in my team, right? Straight in my team if fixtures were looking good, right?
Yeah.
Spoke about Everton already, but I noticed their defense was good. You validated some real stats, but yeah, I'd be, if fixtures even look half decent, I'd be going for a Mikolenko, Tarkowski, whatever, right? I'd be having someone from Everton in my squad. We'll see how the rest of the team like lands up and whatnot. You could even like look at a McNeil, right? When he's been fit, he's been all right, right? So let's see how they line up and how they develop their squad. But yeah, defenders, Everton like stand out. Bournemouth interesting. I'm like defense. I'm neither in or there, but I think the attack is where it stands out, and I think I don't know why, it's just a gut feel. I expect Evan Nilsson to be on penalties over Clivert, and I expect like a real breakout season for him. So I think Semenyo will continue doing really good, like because he's done this now for half a season last year. This last season he did really good the whole season, and then I expect him to be good like throughout the year. But Evan Nilsson, I'm expecting a breakout season. He was injured for a fair amount of the season, didn't start as the starter, and like underlying stats 140 was really good, and I think when you look at that as a per 90, it's pretty good. So yeah, Evan Nilsson and Bournemouth more widely expecting good things. Man City, I think, obviously they were irrelevant this year.
Yeah,
you've got to think with Rodri back, they'd be close to their normal standards. But it's like, who would you pick outside Guardiola? I have no idea.
yeah. Haaland depending on price.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Fixtures and
Fixtures.
whatnot. It'd be interesting to see kind of like what price he comes out as. But like I think they're going to be a bit more fantasy relevant come next year. And then again, Arsenal was a surprise this year. No standout player, maybe outside Saliba, but like he was pretty average. I spoke about it earlier this episode when we were looking at plays that they're good for the last stretch based on underlying stats per 90. I think Saka, I don't see any reason why he won't be starting in my team regardless of fixtures. And I think his price point will be generous based on him not getting any points this year because he's been injured. So Saka will be there. We'll see the rest of the Arsenal squad, but like I think maybe if Gabriel is back, I think imagine the defense will be better with some returns. I mean, risk of saying almost every team there, but I think there's a few players from certain squads I'm interested.
No, I get it. Similar Everton defense, right? Wolves, I agree. Ain't always Strand Larsen, especially Strand Larsen. If he's like, as I say, 6 million or less, could be an absolute steal. And yeah, Arsenal, Man City, you'd imagine top 3 alongside Liverpool. So interesting, mate. Like it.
Liverpool, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But like, I think it's not been like a champagne season.
No. You're gonna stick with Trent's gone, so we'll see what happens there. But I mean, Salah's obviously always going to be in the conversation, right? And then we'll see who they buy, because honestly, mate, other than Salah in that squad, nobody gets enough of a return. The defense, there's no who's going to be the attacking other than Van Dijk off a corner, maybe. There's no attacking returns from the defenders that I'm going to be looking at. So
I mean, the good thing is like
Salah
he's been doing underlying has been good the last quarter of the season, right? As we showed, right? So I think I was worried coming into the season that he's just going to plummet off a cliff, right? Because he was awful back in the last season, but he's not scored points, but the underlying stats are still there. But I think this is an interesting one. I think we chatted about this, but at the Europa League, weren't we? And it was like I would say, player for player, Spurs' top 11 might be equal to yours.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, but you know what I'm saying. There's like, I mean, you are better fullbacks than them.
Are we taking in Frimpong? Are we taking in Kerkez
right now?
Or Trent and Robertson?
No. Well, I think Porro's better than Robertson, right?
Oh, it's the wrong side. Trent's better than Porro.
No, Bradley's not, who is he?
Yeah, but Trent's our player till the 1st of January, 1st of June. So Trent's
You got
better.
you got 4 days.
And I don't know. I don't know enough about Frimpong to compare Frimpong and Porro.
Van der Ven versus Canate. I know I'm being generous there. I'm ignoring Van Dijk, but Van der Ven is better than Canate. I do.
It's very generous of you. Very generous of you. Alisson and Vicario. Alisson's the best keeper in the world.
I'll give that. And then it's like
Gravenberch better than Basuma. Yeah, probably.
There's a debate there, isn't there?
If Liverpool get worse, yeah, Bentike's all right. McAllister, World Cup winner, one of the best. Anyway, there's a reason Liverpool finished first and Tottenham came 17th. Let's not have. That's a completely different conversation.
Same amount of trophies.
Same amount of trophies, but one is in a second tier competition. Moving on to the FPL Apprentice MiniLeague. The part that I've been trying to dodge because I lost Matt versus Dave, which means the winner of this gets to give me some form of FPL. What's the word I'm looking for?
That's a forfeit, a bit of punishment, a bit of a forfeit. All right, bring it to life. Bring it to life. What sort of things could you?
Well, I'll just give it away, but we'll go back. So the sort of things you can do, and I'll bring it up. Jonas, I'll tell you in a second the sort of things you can do because, mate, you stayed at number one. We highlighted it last game week. You were number one going into it, and if anything, you extended your lead, mate. 73 points. Huge round of applause for Jonas. Waiting for the Diop, 73 points even in game week 38. Thanks to Bowen captain picking up 26 points. And he also bought in Semenyo Fasad, the exact same transfer as UMass, worked out an absolute treat. Total points of 2668, which means an overall rank in the world for Jonas of 608th.
Wow.
That is a phenomenal season, Jonas. You have fully earned the right to give me a forfeit. But message me. I'm pretty sure I know you. I've seen you do a few messages on our YouTube videos. I'm pretty sure you follow me or Matt on Twitter. But messages, mate. Get in touch with one of us. You'll see our handles underneath our names here. Let us know what you want to do. The sort of things that I'm thinking. You can pick my captain in a certain game week. You pick the game week. You pick the player. You can choose which player I must put on my bench for a game week. That could be Salah's got 2 home games against Southampton and Leicester. Dave, you've got to put him on your bench. Things like that, right? You could also be really nice, Jonas. After all the free advice I've gave you all season for free on this channel, you could also be really nice to me. What are you thinking, Matt? Have you got any ideas?
Oh, it'd be a shame to break your top 100k streak, right?
It would. I think that too. We'll see if Jonas thinks that when he gives us when he brings up the forfeit. But have you got some things that you could do maybe a bit less harsh than benching Salah at home to Southampton?
What did we do last year? You had a bench, you had captain and defender, didn't you?
In game week 1. Yeah. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's just a random game. I can't remember what game. I'll be honest, I didn't do it. Jonas, I promise you, mate, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. Yeah. That's fair and square. Yeah, something like that. Captain, the defender, and this is the random game week. I don't mind that sort of stuff.
You know what? You just got to get better at predicting differentials, right?
Exactly. Make sure it's you that does the forfeit next time round. Exactly that. But Jonas, messages me. Well done again. An absolutely outstanding season. 608th in the world. Round of applause to you. And that, mate, brings to a close what has been 4 hours of FPL chat for us this evening, over 2 episodes. For you, those of you that stuck with us for the entire thing, by the way, thank you very much. I hope it was a really enjoyable long drive that you had, and we've kept you entertained throughout. But yeah, Matt, end of the season, mate.
End of the season, fit and ends. I enjoyed that. It was good to. We were saying, weren't we? Sometimes week on week, sometimes you're just grinding out and it's repeating the same stuff. I think it's good to take the step back and look at stuff in a more strategic way. I think I feel like I've learned some stuff. Hopefully, you feel the the same. Ironically, I kind of
100%.
enjoy this sort of stuff more than the kind of week to week stuff. But I think good. Congrats on the 70k, 72k kind of rank, mate. I think that's good. Third top 100k in a row. Second season in a row, you've beaten me as well. So it's looking all pretty rosy. And I'm sure we'll probably be quiet now. We'll publish these two, and then we'll be quiet until the FPL game is kind of released. We'll probably kind of repeat some of this content closer to when that's kind of released. But like, if we're available, probably as soon as like the game is released, we'll do a reflection of like early picks, the fixtures and whatnot, kind of churn out some of this content that's got reusable value, and then hopefully give some interesting stuff around structure and strategy can like in
absolutely.
Well, that'd be late July, mid to late July. But I'm looking forward to the break, mate. I think for me, fantasy F1 game will keep my fantasy juices going, which will be good. But I'm looking forward to the break, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
No, yeah,
but it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure being on this journey again.
Absolutely. We'll be
been good
back
fun.
on it next season with a new theme. Well, not a new theme tune, but a new opening. Hopefully, some new theme slides and maybe a different structure. We're going to discuss this over the summer, Matt, aren't we? About maybe a couple instead of one big long episode, maybe splitting it into a couple. But I'll have a play around over the summer. So I'm excited to do that sort of thing. And next year, mates, at the end of the season, let's do some end of season awards. There'll only be two winners. It'll be me or you. But we'll get some end of the season awards up. Little things like that. But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, mate. I'm going to take the break. I am not doing any form of fantasy anything. I never do the Euros or the World Cup, so I'm definitely not doing the Club World Cup, especially when Liverpool weren't invited. So I'll take the summer off, and but I do always look forward to it. Come sort of middle of June, I'll start to get antsy, so I'll be very much excited for it to return. We'll pick up.
Mate. And I think again, like we're open for feedback and whatnot. Like you said, mate, we're not looking for a radical overhaul, but like, hey, let us know what works. Any ideas you've got around like mixing up structure, be welcome. That.
Absolutely. But Matt, for the last time, thank you so much for spending the time with me over the season, should I say. Enjoy your summer break. No doubt we'll stay in touch with each other, but I look forward to restarting this with episode 83 come July. Appreciate
my pleasure, mate. I've enjoyed the last 4 hours. It's been
good. It's been good. And next season, one of us will get a top 10k finish. But to you, listener, thank you for joining us as well. We both appreciate your time, whether this is your first episode you've been with us or you've been with us for the long haul. Remember, if you're not subscribed, please click it. We're really closing in on 1,000. It means a lot to us. It's free to do. Just gives us that warm fuzzy feeling, right, Matt?
Spot on. Absolutely. That's what matters.
That's what matters. All about the warm, fuzzy feeling. So please help us to get to 1,000. But whatever you do with your summer, whether you're playing another form of fantasy game or not, enjoy the break. We look forward to catching you back up with you in July ahead of the 25-26 season. And we'll see you all then. Thanks.